some of the defaults, some of the default settings sometimes do the thing where they only make the speaker come up.
Right.
Okay, so recording to the computer is safer.
Yeah.
And then the next step is for Brad to open his FarPlay session.
Yeah. And create a session number. Do you want me to use my room or
You can.
Okay. I'm getting into the habit of using that. I like the little lock on it.
Yes, you can keep people out.
That way I know when where I'm gonna let them on. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I still need. Okay, so I need to get the invite number. Okay, here it is, and I'll text it to you. Or do you want it on chat?
I think everyone can access it more easily on chat, particularly because Steve is on Windows and like getting it through message onto the computer kind of is inconvenient.
See it on the back. Okay. Alright, where is Zoom? There you are. Chat. And I have everything set up so that people can chat and we can all see what happens, which I didn't do the last couple of times. Okay. You guys got it?
That's the wrong link.
Really?
We would like the FarPlay invitation link.
That's what I thought I had. I guess it didn't copy it. Invite link, right? Okay, let's try this again. That looks different, yeah.
Okay.
Probably the Zoom link again.
No, that's the FarPlay, or at least what you just sent me is the FarPlay link.
Yeah.
I don't know if it went out to. Oh, that's to everyone, so Steve should be able to see it too. But first, the next instruction is for me to connect to FarPlay's, Brad's FarPlay session, so I'll do that first.
Okay. I'm there.
And then now that I'm here, I will hear presumably some echo whenever Brad talks.
Yeah.
For a little while. Okay. The next thing we'll do is we'll have Steve do a few steps in quick succession, but don't do them yet. I have to say what they are because we're going to go into like a 10-second audio blackout period when we do it.
Okay.
So the first thing that Steve is about to do is that in Zoom he will click the audio caret, and then he will click leave computer audio, and then he will click Brad's FarPlay link.
Go ahead and do that.
Yes.
Okay.
Hello? Cool. We can hear you. Then the next step is for Brad, Steve, and David, all three of us, to talk and listen and make sure we can all hear each other through FarPlay. I'll go first.
Check.
Oh, cool. I seem to have heard both of you. Could you both of you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you and Steve.
Fantastic. Okay. Yeah, I think the mic's like not very close.
I can do that right now, right here on the mixer. It's another nice feature here with
the mixer in FarPlay.
I can turn me up right there. I can make you so loud. Oh, that's too loud. Check. I don't want to
blast people's
distortion.
Yeah. Yes.
How's that there?
It's good for me.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Let me just check the green levels for everyone while we're here. I'm going to say A, B, C, D, and I'm looking at where the green level is. Okay, now, Brad, can you say A, B, C, D?
A, B, C, D.
Fantastic. Steve, can you say A, B, C, D? And I was just looking at the green levels in the FarPlay window, and they all look like in the same neighborhood, so that's fine. So now in Zoom, I'm going to click the audio caret, and I'm going to leave computer audio so I don't hear this annoying echo.
Mm-hmm. External headphones. There we go. Okay. Under the speaker or microphone? Microphone. Okay. Check.
Okay, so to double check, speaker was set to external headphones and microphone was set to VB cable.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. Headphones and cable. All right, got it.
Next, David, I will use my iPad to open the audience's Zoom link. Oh, I don't know if I have that. Is it on the Eventbrite page?
Yeah, people could join us on the Eventbrite page.
Okay, that's the one I'm going to use for the iPad to test because I have to check whether the audience would be able to hear us. So let's see, Brad. It's in my email. It is a reminder here. So I click here. Okay, cool. Tell me it is in here. Where's the Zoom link for the audience?
Should be the same actually as one I sent you.
Oh, do you have like one link for everything?
Well, the Eventbrite creates a Zoom link, and then that's what I shared with you guys. I just sent you.
Okay.
So everybody will come in on the same.
Okay, cool. Okay, good. All right.
I wonder if that looks a little better. Yeah. Lighting.
Okay,
That's
I'm
better.
going to paste. I'm going to get this link. Oh no. I can't copy this link in Zoom because that capability is disabled.
What do you need then? You send you another one?
Like from the chat, I need to open it in my iPad,
Okay.
and I can't do it from here.
Okay. Well, I'll send it to you in messaging then.
That works, yes.
Okay. Actually, it's there already, but I sent it to David. I mean to Steve. Steve has it in chat, but I'll send it to you, David. Let me copy it. So now I think I have FarPlay in there. Okay, hold on a moment. Oh no, that's okay. Come on, there we go. Copy link, right? Okay. You should have it.
Okay, thank you. I'm filling out the registration form.
Okay.
I'm going to say A, B, C, D. Okay, I hear myself clearly through the iPad. Brad, can you say A, B, C, D?
A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I had to finish it.
Fantastic. And Steve, could you say A, B, C, D?
A, B, C, D.
Oh, it sounds pretty good. Okay. I'm going to mute this, or almost mute this. Okay, great. Let me just testing. Okay, yeah, it's still running. I'll just leave that there so I can be aware of what the audience hears.
Cool.
If
And I can see that my video screen is not changing on Zoom, so we're obviously on FarPlay audio.
yes. Okay, let's see. Check.
Can you
that
hear me
was
talk while you're talking?
yes.
Good. All right.
So that
Another
was
test for FarPlay.
yes. That was the step for check on iPad on Zoom that FarPlay audio from Brad, Steve, and David is heard. Oh, okay. And now I'm going to put up a sign so that people know not to yell into the session. Why can't you hear us? Because what will happen is even though we won't be disturbed by that, they're going to hear each other yelling and they're going to be pissed.
Okay.
So,
I was going to announce we're on FarPlay and kind of make a
Yes.
pitch out of it as well.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
It benefits us anyway. Put this here. Oh, Brad. Where is it? Okay.
Well,
Here.
Steve, I sent an invitation to Jeanette, but I don't know. Oh, that's interesting.
I'm gonna put it on the other side of my body, but yes, the basic idea is there. So
New trick.
yes, let's put this over here so I don't have to keep bending that way because it's annoying. And then I'll export this, make this one, save, replace. Then I'll come back and then I will fix this so it's on the right side. Add image. Brad. Hold questions. Oh, that's much better. Okay.
Okay. What I may do is start a new recording at 3,
Oh, yes. Okay.
so they don't have to edit it out.
All the tech crap.
Yeah. I want to make sure that we're the only ones in the whole wide world who see this. Okay.
Ta-da!
So anyway, I don't know. I get emails that tell me somebody's bought a ticket, so I don't know if Jeanette will be joining us or not.
I
She's
don't
got the
know.
invite.
It's hard to say.
Oh yeah, she's a busy girl.
Oh, okay. And then it says step 16 was it would be okay to make tea, etc. And then by 2:50 p.m. Pacific, which was about a minute ago, Brad, Steve, and David returned to computers. If an audience member joins early, we can double check with them to put input into the chat. Hello, can you hear us all okay? Other than that, we should be ready to go. And then if someone wants to share music during the session, there's a step 20 for Brad. But that's optional because I don't know that you might not even do that.
Yeah, I've got something in my back pocket, but it hasn't been worth doing yet.
Okay. Anyway, you'll just be able to use Mac's Control Center to send default output, like a system sound, to Black Hole, and then
Right.
you'll be able to bring YouTube or whatever you want in that way.
I haven't changed anything that way, so.
Or if you have something in Audacity, it'll just work because that's the way you have it set up.
So let's see. Prepare Steve for what's going to happen here. There we go.
I look like tech support.
6:30. There it is, the bio. So what I'm going to do first off, Steve, is kind of run through your bio. And it's going to be the complete bio, not the one that I had to put on Eventbrite because it wouldn't give me 1,000 words, characters, whatever. So, Steve was born black. So I'll just kind of look at these, highlight them, ask questions, get your background, make you a star, all those things you're supposed to do on these kind of situations.
Is there anything in particular you'd like me to reinforce for this particular podcast with you?
Well, I don't want it to be too much staged, but as we've kind of spoken, the idea is to educate singers on how to be prepared to work with you.
Okay.
Because I don't think they understand. One of the questions I asked Corey was, so what do you think about, he was talking about things that people should do. And I said, well, what do you think about people who think they can just go in their basement, wherever, go in their little studio, make a recording, stick it on YouTube, and they're going to go viral. And he was very political. He said, well, I think they have a different agenda. Which means they're trying to find an easy way to become rich and famous. And then we just talked briefly about, well, one of the things that might be better for them to do is just play the lotto.
I don't know if I'm
Chances are
quite
better.
that. I don't know if I'm quite that quick with my wit, but
Well, I brought it up because this conversation has come up a lot with me with my students. So this is kind of an extension of my private coaching. As I mentioned, I spend a lot of time, and even Steve and I have talked on the phone, even about one of the clients I was working with at the time that he was doing a recording. And so I wanted to kind of expand this information outside of me to let people hear you say it instead of me saying it.
okay.
And not that I won't be saying it, just when I'm teaching, but this reinforces it. For instance, I might get a new person who's interested in working with me, and when they find out they can't come to the studio live, and then I tell them that it wouldn't make any difference even if they did, they still will choose not to work with me because they want whatever. And if they want musical theater training, I don't even recommend me or opera. I send them, and I suggest they find someone else because this is all around electronics.
Okay.
But I may bring up some, I was thinking about this, I'll bring up some simple comments about what people think a voice lesson is about, and some simple things that I cover that, because I don't want this to sound so advanced that it's only advanced people who think that they can learn from this. In fact, one of the people who's potentially going to join us today is the mother of an 8-year-old. And she's just kind of curious about what we're doing and how it may affect her daughter as she gets older. I think
Okay.
that's really cool. Is there anything particular, and see, this is even more important for the beginning of the session, is there anything you want me to emphasize about you? I'll talk about the album.
Yeah, you can talk about that, and if there's, I may answer some of your questions by using some of my experiences in recording, and so
That would be great.
that's what I have in mind of doing. Not really making it about me, but what I've learned, and since I've been aware of you and your techniques since the '80s, I can share that too.
That would be great. I really like the conversational aspect. And I really like what happens when people ask questions, how it takes us into areas that we may have not have thought about.
I understand.
Okay.
Okay.
Getting close to trigger time. So I'm going to stop this recording. No, I don't want to end the meeting. Do that.
Make David do this all over again.
Yeah. Well, that's the best way to integrate things, right?
I'm gonna leave this video up for like maybe a minute or two as people are trickling in, and then I will politely turn off my video because I think it looks weird if there's like this in the middle of the interview for 50 minutes.
Oh, okay.
I
Well, I
just
look weird, so it's okay if you look.
And then Brad, I texted you a sample blurb that you can put into the chat for everyone, just so that people who are late can also know that we can't hear them.
Okay, welcome. You are invited to join the meeting, Brad Chapman Volker podcast. Music industry record. Oh, no, that's me. There it is. Okay. Please hold questions until Q&A. All right. Brad and Steve will return. So, okay, I'll leave this open until so I
Or
can
like
read it.
people.
Yeah.
And you can put it into the chat. I can't put it into the chat, or like I can, but it won't go out to everyone.
It should.
It's there's a permission setting that's causing it, so like anyone who chats is only able to send the Zoom chat to you.
Well,
Brad.
I fixed that. I thought. Let me see if there's something I can do about that. Here, chat. I thought I fixed those settings. To everyone, it says.
Yeah, that's for you, so you can broadcast to everyone, but like I can't.
Okay, it says, who can see your messages? Recording on. So everyone in the meeting can see. Okay, so what if I got to change, David? You know this stuff.
I don't know.
Oh, you're right. Okay, I see what. Participants can chat with hosts and everyone. Okay, I fixed that now.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you for letting me know.
Oh, then I can put in the message. I wonder if they can see it if they come in later. I'm gonna make it pop.
An interesting term for what we're doing is pre-production.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, right now we're doing pre-production, which is a service that I provide as well.
At no extra charge.
Actually, it is because I know it's going to be a short period of time that I work with them, so and it's more valuable. So I do charge a little extra. Okay, it's 3 o'clock. All right, let me start the recording and the official Zoom meeting. Okay, whoops, there's recording.
Oh, someone has joined.
Cool. Pause recording. Why? Resume recording. Okay. Pause recording. All right. We're recording. Okay. All right. To those of you who have joined us, let me.
One person.
Yeah. Hi, Lily. Now, just to let you know that we're going to hold Q&A for an hour. Gives Steve and I plenty of time to talk about what we think is most important. Someone else just joined. Anyway, so we're on a different audio source, so you won't be able to chime in until we change the audio source at the hour. So hang in there, write down any questions you may have so that you remember them, and you'll all be on. Your microphones will all be on, and we can chat an hour from now. Okay, Zoom. Let's see, where is that?
If there is an emergency, like I can't hear someone, you can type that into the Zoom chat.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, hi Steve, how are you doing?
Good, Brad. How are you today?
Great. We got the sunny days here in Las Vegas. It's one of the things I love about here is that every morning when I wake up, the sun's up.
And it just doesn't seem to want to go away at the end of the day either.
Well, yeah, that's pretty good. Living in LA, we were about 10 minutes from the beach, and so every morning we had the burn off.
Yeah.
So it wasn't sunny when we woke up. Sometimes it was, and it would wake us up. Most of the time it was cloudy. We had to wait till like 10 or 11. But I'm a sunshine guy. So how long have you been here, Steve?
25 years.
Oh, wow.
Been working here a little longer than that, but my family and I moved to Las Vegas in 99.
Yeah, tell us about that story with you, and I think it was, what does it say here? A very famous Las Vegas singer brought you here.
Oh, yeah. Right.
What's his name again?
His name is Wayne Newton.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Wayne Newton. How can you forget that name? He became, after, between him and Elvis, he was Mr. Vegas.
Yeah, he kind of took over the reign of the king of Las Vegas after Elvis's passing, and they were really good friends, by the way.
I imagine.
But I was living in Branson, Missouri, and working in shows there, and I just so happened to be doing my own dinner show in the Tony Orlando Yellow Ribbon Theater, and Wayne started performing his show there. Oh. And so I got to know some of the band. They'd filter in and out, and we'd have conversations. And one afternoon before I left for my show, I got a call from the music director, and he said, Wayne's really interested in having you join us. So
cool.
I'm like, okay, let me think about this. Okay.
That was your big break.
Yeah, it really was.
Well, tell us about this Missouri town. I mean, I'm kind of like, what was Wayne Newton doing there? What makes that special?
Well, it's a kind of an amazing place. It's a small town, and it's just full of all kinds of entertainment. And in the 90s, when we were there, it was mainly older country musicians, or, for example, Andy Williams had his own theater. Charlie Pride, I could go on, and Roy Clark,
Oh,
Willie Nelson,
wow.
plus a whole list of lesser entertainment, but who would be like known in the area. For example, a family, which I can't remember the name of, they had been there, they had grown up there doing shows downtown in a small little, tiny little theater. And
Hmm.
as Branson grew, they had their own theater eventually.
Oh,
So,
nice.
yeah, it was really a cool place to be able to work and then go home at night instead of being on the road or anything
Yeah.
like that. So,
Yeah, I remember the road.
yeah, right. And I don't mind the road, but we had two small children at the time, and it was just nice. Go work, do two shows a day, and go home. And it was nice. And then when I started working with Wayne, we did two shows a day, 5 days a week in Branson. Flew out Friday after the second show, did at least two shows on Sunday, Saturday and Sunday somewhere in North America, and then flew back and got ready for the Monday matinee. So it was 10, 11, 12 shows a week,
Woo.
just nonstop, end to end.
Did Wayne sing all those
Yeah,
shows?
yeah.
That's a lot. He was always
Wayne,
extremely hoarse. I wondered why. Now I know.
well, he wasn't back then near as
Oh,
much. And, certainly time has taken a toll, but that's to be expected. But it was amazing. I thought he was at top form back then. He hit every note, and it was always perfect. And his Wayne truly is talented. He
yeah.
has great pitch, and it's just plus it's like having a master class in entertainment every show. It's just amazing.
That's interesting you mentioned he was perfectly pitched. So, one of the things that we'll talk about today, a little bit later possibly, is commercial music in key? Are the singers who are in contemporary, I guess, is the new word, really actually on pitch? The various styles seem to have different pitches. You as a guitar player, when you play the blues, do you bend the notes all the way to the pitch?
No, not all the
Exactly.
time. Yeah,
Right.
right. And what's wrong with that? I mean,
Nothing.
that's and it's kind
That's
of
absolutely
interesting.
right.
Yeah, right. Well, that's you got to put a little in there, and
Exactly. You got to twist that face, you
yeah,
know.
sonically speaking, and visually too. But
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting. One funny story about Wayne, then we can move on from that. As we were playing an outdoor festival, and the music director was also the piano player, and we would backline these Roland FP pianos, and they were great sounding pianos, weighted action and everything. But the funny thing was they had a tune knob on the back of it where you would actually tune it.
Oh, okay.
Now it had a detent, so you would, it was set at 440.
Yeah.
But this particular piano had been abused or something,
Oh.
and it would start drifting right in the
Ooh.
middle of a song.
How'd
And
that sound?
well, the funny thing was, it started drifting when Greg, the music director, was playing piano and Wayne was singing, just the two of them, and it started to drift. And
Oh.
Greg's looking at me like, "What do we fix it? Fix it!" So I go over there and I start trying to mess with the button, the knob,
Mm-hmm.
and everywhere the pitch went on that piano, Wayne went with it.
Yeah,
It was the
that's
most
good. Yeah.
incredible thing I'd ever witnessed in my life. He went right with that pitch.
Yeah. It would have been hard for him to stay on actually in the 440.
Oh yeah, it was impossible.
Singers, as you know, are very influenced by their environment. For instance, if you're singing harmonies, the tendency is to drift to the lead vocal.
Uh-huh.
And you sing harmonies, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So it took a skill to get that way, so that you could do that without ending up on the solo pitch, right?
Well, being an instrumentalist, I would have my guitar pitches in my ear, and but then you had to also match the singer, their phrasing,
Right.
whatever they did with the pitch.
If they're
And
off
I,
pitch, you have to be slightly off pitch.
yeah, that's right. And it becomes intuitive after a while, I think.
It does. I like to say that by the way, everyone, we're doing something very different today. I want to talk about. You'll maybe notice or maybe not notice because it sounds so normal that Steve and I can crosstalk. And what that means is that if he's talking, I can talk and he can hear me talk. And you can hear me talk. And vice versa. If I'm talking and Steve talks, we can hear him talk. With Zoom, you cannot do that. So when we get into the Q&A, we're going to lose this value. But I want everybody to know that this is being broadcast by a company called FarPlay.io, if you want to look them up. And this crosstalk is something really new to the industry. Skype doesn't have it, Zoom doesn't have it, virtually no one has it except for someone such as FarPlay, where we're on headphones and microphones, which is one of the things we'll talk about the singer should always be on anyway, or at least have monitoring on their stage. But this ability to crosstalk, it makes this very much more natural. So I don't have to yell if I want to get louder than Steve so he can hear me talk, which is what you have to do with Zoom. So we really appreciate FarPlay and thank you for helping arrange this. And we'll be doing these this way from now on with FarPlay. Now, let's finish the piano. Was that did you get that on key or what happened?
Yeah, eventually we got it. It was a bad volume pot, or a pot, I'm sure,
Yeah.
because eventually we got it, stuck some gaff tape on it, and it stayed, I think, pretty much for the rest of the show. And that was a really close call, but oh man.
Congratulations. You know, those of us who've used pots know that they can get dirty, and that could be it, or it was actually damaged, and they will act very erratically. Some of you may have experienced it with your stereo. You're turning up the volume, and all of a sudden you're hearing, you know, as you're going back and forth, or your tone, your bass, or your treble. That's the pot. It has a, without going into too much detail, it has a wiper in it, if you will, like a car wiper. And when you turn it, it moves along a copper path. And humidity especially sometimes can build up rust. And so there's actually a chemical that you could spray in there and clean them up. They're like brand new. All right, so let's go back. So Steve, you said you were born in black dirt of North Central Kansas. What does that mean, born in the black dirt?
Well, that's all there was. I mean,
Oh, wow.
it was totally away from any cities, and I grew up in the country, in the dirt, so to speak. I went to a small town school that had about 1,200 people in the town, and most of the kids were farm kids. And the one saving factor was our high school had a wonderful music department, just great. We had a professional jazz trombonist as a band director, and we had a woman, Marianne Salman, who I don't know how she made it to this little town, but she was from Hungary. And she was classically trained. And so by the time I got out of high school, I'd already had 2 years of music theory, and it just was a wonderful place in terms of that.
Wow.
In terms of getting music instruction, forget it. You know, there wasn't,
No
you know, for
private
me as a
teachers.
guitarist, I also played trumpet, but,
Oh, cool. I played that instrument for a while when
and
I was very young.
And so my scholarships, it was at a time to where most colleges, except on the coast and in the bigger cities, they didn't recognize guitar as a valid instrument. That was, you know, something that, you know, still wasn't allowed in any churches at the time. And so I had to declare my trumpet as my major through college to keep all my scholarships.
Wow.
And of course, I played guitar in the jazz band there, but
Yeah, see, it mentions here that You all, some of Steve's bio you can see on Eventbrite, but I couldn't. It only take 1,000 characters, and Steve's bio is much more into that. So we may talk about things that you didn't get a chance to read. But it's very interesting here that you were able to break out of that, and that you got that. So what did you do? This is an interesting question that I've talked to different producers about. We all have different musical backgrounds. And for contemporary music, a musical background where you have imitated other contemporary players, like could have been in the 60s. Like I remember in the 60s, I was ripping off guitar licks from Eric Clapton, Ritchie Blackmore. We were learning their songs, so we were also ripping off the chord structures and so forth. When I finally went into some classical training, it was bizarre. They were talking about counterpoint and all that, and the guitar. I'm sure when we played an open G to an open D, there was some of that going on. There was some counterpoint, but or counter. Yeah, you call it counterpoint. I didn't take it for any more than a year. But so you had all this training with music theory and jazz, and yet you went into contemporary music. So how did you make that transition?
It was natural. When I started playing, which was in the 60s, my dad, who had, his family had a background in music, but he told me when it became kind of apparent that I wanted to pursue music at a young age, like 11 years old, he said, now, if you want to make a living at this, play it all. Play everything.
Smart.
You have a better chance of making a living at it. And so I did. I was raised around country music, which I love. Then, everything on the radio at the time, which our local town, the bigger town, not the one I went to school in, but the bigger town was next to an army base. And so they had a good radio station that played everything, Motown, rock, everything.
Nice.
And so I was a big listener at the time, of course, and would take in all those influences and sit with my guitar and figure it out. In terms of, there were no guitar teachers. There were a lot of guitar players around. And so I could learn whatever they had to show me. But once I got into studying music theory, so on and so forth, I would just apply it to the guitar. I just kind of figure it out. Since I read music at a young age, I was able to do that and kind of figure it out. And so when I got to college, the main influence there was jazz, the jazz program, which the small college I went to had a great jazz program. And I was able to come in contact with some jazz greats at the time. For any guitar players, if you know who Freddie Green was, Freddie Green was he was Count Basie's guitar player, and really,
now that's recognizable.
yeah, and he really invented the big band approach to playing guitar. And he would come to the whole band would come to our small college about once a year, and I had access to Freddie Green, and so I had an hour lesson with him, and he showed me how he did that, and it was great. I mean, there's nothing like that. And growing up, it was television. Even though growing up in North Kansas, we only got like 2.5 TV channels, and depending on the weather. I don't know how it was for anybody else, but we would have. I'd watch everything from the Lawrence Welk Show to Hee Haw to Midnight Special, Don Kirshner's rock concert, and all at the same time, I'd be recording them so I could listen back to them. I'd first on a little cassette deck, then a Wallensack tape recorder, and so my interest in recording was it was spawned at a young age as well. Trying to get a better recording every weekend, and so I don't know. It's just
Well, Well, actually, I wanted to mention, right, since you brought that up, you remember Misty Rowe then?
Yeah,
Hee Haw. Yeah.
yeah,
So I worked with her in LA for a while.
uh-huh,
She was a character, I'll tell you. But very intelligent, actually.
yeah,
And of course, I had to be very careful because her first assumption is anything I did could be, considered sexual. So I had to be very careful not to bring anything like that up. Oh, Misty, you look so good in those shorts. No, no, no. Never say anything like that when you're working with people like that. That's a kiss of death. That's something you have to learn. And I
yeah,
imagine you learned it at a very young age as well, working with these jazz greats. Um, I I remember, I played guitar actually. That was my first rock and roll instrument when I was about 13. And to find a guitar player playing on TV so you could see what they were doing was a hard thing to find.
yeah. You had to
So
wait for
everything
the
was by ear.
solos. Yeah, you had to wait for the solos or the close-ups, or
Hmm.
and that's what I liked about Hee Haw was Roy Clark was always
Yeah.
featured in a tune, so you could see it, say,
Hmm.
wow. Then you try to emulate it, and of course back then, learning it that way, it was an incredible way to gain ear training.
Yes.
And what's ear training? Well, that's training your ear,
Hmm.
to hear pitches
Yeah,
and
to hear things.
yeah,
That's good that you went into that.
yeah, and that's real important. And it's the same thing with learning songs. You
Hmm.
remember the old needle drop
Yep.
method? Yeah, I just like play the,
We're
over and
exposing
over and
our
over.
age, Steve.
Yeah,
You guys work with vinyl? Oh, you guys are old.
yeah, right. Yeah, cassettes were like great when they came out. You could actually
Yeah. Yeah, I had a
rewind.
reel to reel for a little while. That was a hassle compared to cassettes, yeah.
But ear training, it took the visual out of learning.
Mm-hmm.
And today's players are very visual. It's YouTube, it's
Yeah.
you know whatever on TV, and we just didn't have that.
Well, it's interesting because in LA, there's a school. What's it called? I don't know. It emphasizes guitar, kind of like an MIT for guitar,
Oh yeah,
musical.
GIT,
GIT, thank
yeah,
you.
yeah.
And one of the complaints about the players that came out of GIT was they had no feel. So I would be talking to a producer or another person who hired guitar players, and they say every time somebody came in and played from GIT, we basically just had to pass on them.
Well, I remember living in LA, and of course, I'd go out and get the Music Connection every week.
Mm-hmm. Great
And look,
magazine. Yeah, I was
yeah,
in there.
uh, that's how we found you, as a matter of fact.
Oh, cool. Yeah, they did
And
a couple of interviews on me. They were great.
yeah, and so I remember looking through the auditions, and some of them would say no GIT players,
Yeah.
and because they apparently they all learned the same thing, and they all
Mm-hmm.
came out sounding the same, which
Right.
wasn't bad, believe me. But
Well, let's talk about that for just a second, because as a coach, when I get a singer who comes in, and sometimes well, I remember one guy I was working with, is a great jazz pianist, and he'd been through the whole thing with the jazz. And so when he realized that he needed emotional coaching, in other words, he wasn't playing by feel or with feel, I came up with a phrase I called sing from feel. And basically what that means is that you feel it and then you play it, rather than you try to do it at the same time. People say, well, you should play with feel. Well, there's nothing wrong with that comment, but I dug a little deeper into it. I said, wait a minute, there's something that has to happen first. The brain has to experience something, and then as a great musician, which you are, then you just feel it through your guitar. You don't think about the names of the notes or the music theory that you learned, right? You feel it. Is that
yeah,
correct? Yeah.
you become expressive with your instrument. And for me, not being I sing, but I'm not a singer really. And for me, my voice was the guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as you heard some players being very lyrical and melodic with their playing, it's like, oh yeah, okay. You
Eric
know,
Clapton. Wow.
yeah, so many of the great ones, and I wasn't even into blues music at the time, and of course you listen to them, and it's there's no better example.
How did you make that transition? Going back to that question, coming from it, most of the guys that I know that are really good at both, uh, playing by ear and reading, learn to play by ear first. And then, as you say, adding that skill of learning to read in order to make themselves better as far as work goes.
Yeah. So when I first started playing guitar, it was the same age, 10 years old, same age as playing trumpet, but I played guitar about a month ahead of time. There was a young college student that lived in the small town. This town is near Kansas State University, and she was teaching guitar, basic guitar, but she taught out of the Mel Bay method, and that required you to read music.
Right.
So I started reading music immediately. However, that's lame compared to the stuff you hear on the radio, right? I
Right.
mean, when you're talking about Deep Purple or Clapton or
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is, I mean, that's a whole nother way of playing. So I learned to read music early and retained that, but then I had to learn how to play by ear
Right.
and how to learn patterns. And I remember I remember when I was about 12, uh, that's when my uncle and aunt brought over a Jimi Hendrix record,
Ooh.
and I wasn't sure if I was going to be allowed to listen to that, but I became a big listener of it, and I actually thought he was playing all those parts at the same time.
Oh yeah, the
Right?
multi-track stuff.
Right. And
Yeah.
so I'd lay in bed at night with my guitar, and I was actually putting two hands on the fingerboard trying to play all the parts because I had never visually seen him play. I didn't know about multi-track recording.
No, but a lot of people didn't.
Yeah. And so uh, just it's that ear training again.
Mm-hmm.
And I soon found out that I was going down the wrong path. But but anyway, so I got to college, and that requires, big band charts and stuff. You got to read music, and of course, applying more music theory and ear training in college, I started to study jazz on the guitar, and we were gigging local clubs at the same time in college. So it's
Helped you
not,
pay your way through, didn't it?
it did.
Yeah.
And although this is not the right thing to do, I tried to play what I learned in my jazz teachings at night over rock tunes. And,
Mm-hmm.
it didn't, some of it was okay, but most of it wasn't. But after college, what I kind of had to do was I had to forget all this cerebral intellectual stuff I learned.
That's hard, isn't it?
Yeah, it was very hard. It was easier to learn it than to let it go. So I had to unlearn that stuff and find playing from the soul and playing from the heart again. And it took a while.
Yeah.
Took a while to do that.
Well, I know in coaching, it's been tough when people, somebody comes in, they've been a choir singer, and now they want to be able to swing, or they want to be able to rock, they want to shuffle, and they don't have it. And so I bury them in swing, for instance. It's one of the first places to get them loosened up. And it was a difficult transition for them. Now, it's interesting you mentioned by ear, though. A lot of singers, that's how we learn, is all by ear. Unless we were in a choir, or unless we took performance in college, opera, which I didn't do. It's like, I knew better. Steve's background and I are a little bit backwards. I started off not knowing anything about music or reading music. Everything was by ear. And everything was by listening. And like we talked earlier, if you weren't here, about trying to get licks off of television shows because they didn't happen very often. So, yeah, and Frank Greenfield's on, and he's also a great guitar player. Came with a little bit more of a background like you did, Steve. But I asked him and I'll ask you, Steve. So you know about bebop, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So Richie Blackmore was one of the only guitar players at that time that I was aware of who was using that. I didn't know what it was, but it made his rock style different.
Yeah, Richie Blackmore was a big influence on me. I mean, there's just something about his hands and his tone. And he certainly came from a different place than a Clapton or a Jeff Beck or a Beatles or whatever. You know, it was totally a different place. And of course, now we know from his the last I don't know 20 plus years of him playing Renaissance music. That he was highly influenced by Renaissance and classical music, which we heard in those early Deep Purple years. Didn't couldn't tell you what it was, but we heard it in there. And so it's hard, you know. You have to kind of play the right music or sing the right type of music to be able to utilize those types of techniques. Like, you know, bebop works great in some things, like some soft rock or pop rock, or, you know, even, well, there's a lot more now. But back then, there were only a handful of genres of music.
Yeah, the world has grown.
Yeah, you go into the record store and there's like, okay, there's the rock section, there's the jazz section, there's a tiny blues section, and now it's like, oh man, it's like basically you write music and then you invent a genre, and that's what it is.
Well, everything comes from the street, so to speak. These styles don't come out of colleges,
no.
generally speaking, you know.
Yeah.
And then another thing you mentioned about trying to figure out what Richie was doing. A lot of those guys, especially in England, as I understand, Jimi Hendrix and or not Jimi Hendrix, he was American, but what was his name? Played for, how could you forget the name of that band? Anyway, they had their guitar amplifiers made special so they could get unique sounds. And that was not public knowledge at the time.
You didn't have hardly anything back then. I mean, there were only a few types of amplifiers, and forget guitar pedals. I mean, that was
Yeah.
non-existent.
Yeah, you mentioned you
Almost.
had one of the 6 or something.
Oh, when I had a wah-wah and a fuzz face, I was thinking, oh man, what else would I possibly want?
Yeah.
Well, I'd
What
hate
do you
to
have
show
now?
you. I'd hate to show you what I have now, but
Guitar modeling, that's a trip.
yeah, modeling, profiling, all of it, and it's gotten so good that you can utilize it, and you don't even know what it is when you listen to it. There's a mixture on my last album. There's a mixture of vintage tube. Almost all my amps are tube amps, and most of them are vintage. And I also used a Kemper profiler, and I don't know that anybody could tell me which parts I played with either one. But yeah, technology is wonderful, and that's one of the nice things about this FarPlay. You know, as we've discussed over the last couple days, and even Zoom, to be able to do this is great.
So about going back to vocal about that. So now there's AI, and so you can model your voice. In other words, you could be a bad singer and sound great. I understand. I think it's a great tool for songwriters. And when we get into Q&A, I'm sure Mayat will have some things to say about this. Positive things that I hadn't thought of. Is like, okay, how are we going to use AI other than a tool? Are we going to sing and then Elvis' voice comes out and now we're Elvis? And are we going to recreate Elvis? You know, and it was use his videos, use his images, but just kind of be in the background like the Wizard of Oz guy, just
Well, it's
pushing the
crazy.
buttons.
It's crazy. I mean, I kind of understand what AI is about. I haven't experienced it. I mean, personally, I've never used it that I know about. Guess I have on my phone, maybe.
It's all over Instagram.
Yeah.
I can tell you that.
But one of the things about contemporary music is it all sounds so much the same. And especially with the art of tuning vocals, so on and so forth.
And we'll talk about Melodyne later.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it amazes me. We'll save that for later, but I have a lot to say about that.
Good.
But you go ahead and lead the discussion.
Well, actually, I think we're there. So let's just go
Okay.
ahead and talk about what you think of Melodyne and probably auto tune.
Well, I think it's great when when I'm singing. Here's the interesting thing. Auto-tune, Melodyne, whatever you want to call it, there are different programs out there. They're great. And I think what they've done is they have actually trained the public's ear to hear perfect singing. And now it's expected. But what happens when you go back and you listen to a song from the 50s or 60s or 70s or 80s? I don't care if it's Journey, the Beatles, whoever,
Big Bopper.
whatever. You listen to some of those groups like the Temptations, and sometimes it's like, yeah, the pitch isn't quite there, the blend isn't quite there on the chords, but who cares? I'm
Well,
still
we got
smiling
trained.
and moving to the music.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting thing you mentioned in a way that as an audience, they also got trained to accept that. In other words, I remember music teachers saying, "Oh, the Beatles sing flat," and of course, I'm like, 12 years old. They do not. They're perfect, So our ears got trained so that we thought that was on key. And I've done some research with Melodyne. They were not. In fact, McCartney singing Michelle, he's an eighth to a quarter step flat on virtually every note. But we accepted that as perfect pitch.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, why does everything have to be perfect? I
Exactly.
mean,
Now, they and perfect is not perfect, right?
yeah, right. And it's the same thing with modern production techniques. One thing I notice when I listen to the radio, and I listen to all genres of music, but I notice that there's so much familiarity between artist and artist to artist to artist. And if you listen to the groups from the 60s, I was traveling recently listening to Sirius Radio, and I happened to come across some old replays of Casey Kasem's Top 40, so that
Oh, wow.
kept me company on the road. And the interesting thing is, every artist on that Top 40 sounded different. Their technique, their production technique was different. The instrumentation was different. The arrangements were unique. Their vocals were unique, and you could recognize them just by the sound of the band.
A
And
couple of notes, and you know who it is.
yeah, you know who it is. And today, I'm not sure how much of that exists. I know that's open for debate, and I don't want to sound like I know everything, but I'd like there to be a little bit more individuality in music, in production, in everything. And right now, it's like if you're engineering or mixing or producing, it's like they're okay. Here are the rules. You kind of have to do it this way, do it that way, and I got we got into a discussion with the guy mixing my last album, which is he did a great job. Um, but I'm like, okay, isn't that? I mean, the dynamic range. I wish we had more dynamic range. He goes, you just can't do that today. You can't have the lows like that. You've got
Why
to
not?
if you want to compete, if you want yours, if you want, it's about volume. It's about this loudness thing.
Right.
And,
What is that called? The loudness competition or something like that. War. The
yeah,
loudness war. I've heard
and
of.
I understand. It's like, okay, if the song before you is X loud and your song comes on and it's not quite as loud, you're going to you failed. I don't know. Maybe, of course, on the radios, the old radio stations, maybe it's the same way now. With all the compression and limiting that went through to broadcast a signal, everything kind of evened out.
I know they use compression as well. But if you guys didn't use it, they put it on anyway, right? Is that what
Well,
you're
it's
saying?
there. Just it's
Yeah.
part of the broadcast technology.
We don't have that, by the way. What you get is what you get here with FarPlay. There's no compression.
Compression. Maybe a little. I hear a little reverb, but
Well, that's me.
I know.
I've got it on my mixer. And let me explain that. I know from a broadcasting perspective, it would be better if I didn't have it. But I believe very strongly that singers should always have reverb on their voices. Because a dry vocal is a vocal where the singer tends to actually try to create something he cannot create, because reverb is just a natural room sound. And when you go in the booth, that's taken away from you. So it's got to be put back. I think that's why it was invented. They put it back to sound natural. I really don't call it an effect, even though it is. It's something that you put back to make things sound natural, actually.
Yeah, it's an ambience. It's a natural
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
ambience. Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. The having been able to experience music for longer than I want to admit, it's
I love it.
well, now we can compare, and because we've experienced all that, even productions. When I started recording in my bands in the '70s, things were different back then, and compared to today, I'm not going to say they were better,
Definitely
but
different. Yeah.
I've embraced digital, and I really wouldn't want to go back. I know there's a sound, I know that, but I'm too impatient to wait for the tape to sync up so I can do my next take and blunder that in 3 seconds, then have to wait for it to sync up again. It's like I don't have that patience anymore.
And when you edit, you've got to cut the tape.
Yeah, right.
Long process. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But it's beautiful, It's like when you're doing it and it's like, oh my God, I just made this song better by, you know. I remember working in LA in a studio, and um, some of the guys there were masters at cutting tape. Of course, we were still using quarter-inch analog tape for most of the mastering and everything.
Yeah.
And the guy that owned the studio had come out of Hollywood studios in the '50s, and that guy, he could cut holes in the tape and get rid of drum beats, get rid of this, get rid of that, he'd split it down the middle, and it was amazing the techniques he would use. Um, and I never tried those techniques, but he taught me how to cut tape, and I'm glad I learned it. But I don't care to go back.
Well, let's theorize for a minute. Let's theorize history. Why do you think editing became invented?
Well, I don't know. I know what it was used for. I mean, there were several takes in the '50s. There were several takes of a song, and the editor would go through and use all those takes to come up with what we ended up hearing, what was pressed on the 45 or the vinyl, and what we heard.
But it didn't make it perfect, like you were saying, that auto-tune can do.
Oh no, but it made it better.
Right. Here's my theory. You guys can argue with me when we get into the Q&A if you want. I think that when you make a recording live and then you listen to it 10, 20 times, you start to notice things you would never notice in a live performance because you only hear it once. So there's little imperfections that start to grind on you a little bit. I don't know if I want to hear that 25 times, but you do want it on the radio 25 times, right? You want to play it every day for as many times as they want to. So I think editing was invented to kind of remove things that would start to bother the listener after 10, 15, 20 listens. Because live, a lot of stuff does not get edited. They do now because they're recording everything live. I don't know if you guys know this, but most live performances are multi-track, and they can go back and change everything if they want. I had the experience, I got to learn about it through Madonna's performance. So I'm watching this Made in Italy recording of hers. And I noticed, first of all, the pitches of the keys of the songs were set down at least a third, sometimes maybe even a fourth. Because she really could, she was a contralto almost, and you didn't get to hear that until she sang that one ballad where she sang pretty low. She actually hit a low G in it, and it sounded like an alto singing a low G, not a soprano like everything else that they queued up for her. But anyway, I noticed that the background singers sounded like they were in an entirely different room than Madonna sounded. And I thought, well, this is pretty weird. I mean, background singers sound like they're in the Coliseum, but Madonna does not. And I happened to be working with a dancer who'd been on that show at the time, and I said something to him about it. He said, oh yeah, you couldn't keep anything that Madonna did live. She said it was just so off pitch, it was just awful. But the kids were screaming like she was singing perfect pitch, right? I mean, again, these kids kind of get mesmerized with what's going on in a live show. And so they went back and redid her vocals completely.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
Yeah, everything was not live. It was not a live show.
The audience was there, but
Yeah, and the background singers were there because they were good enough. Let me tell you a little story about Melodyne that I went through as what I call a vocal producer. And I was working with this young kid who was more pop background, but on this particular recording, they wanted him to sound country. So we were doing it at Westlake. Westlake is beautiful recording, a lot of great, Michael Jackson and all this stuff there, just an incredible studio. But I'm listening to the recording of the kid, and I had said something to the engineer, I can't remember what it was, but he says, well, I've got auto-tune on. I said, turn it off. We want an emotional performance from this young boy. We don't want a technical performance from this young boy. He says, okay, I'll turn it on. So then we did the melodyning together, the mixing. And he had a pretty good ear for pop. So he didn't tune everything. And that's one of the things that a mixer can do, either good or bad. They can over-tune, like you say, make it too perfect, especially in a genre like country where things are not usually edited that much. Anyway, what was interesting is I heard a note that was too on pitch for country. And I said to the mixer, I says, okay, I want to flatten that note with Melodyne. And he did it, and he said, that's really bothering my ear. And I said, okay, well, do you ever listen to country? He said, no. I said, well, each genre has its own tuning. And country music, depending on, again, who the artist is, country music can be more off key than pop. So you're going to leave that alone. We're not going to, but actually, I had him turn it flat.
yeah.
You don't hear about it too often. Let's make that note flat. Well, wait a minute. That's bizarre. What are you talking about? Everything should be tuned sharper to become closer to the original pitch. But in this case, that didn't sound right.
No, it's with modern technology, it's really easy to take the soul out of a performance, even the arrangement, let alone the vocals. When I first got my DAW, my digital
Audio
studio,
workstation.
it's like, okay, now I can perfect everything. So I worked and, edited and did this and that. And it's like, wow, that really sucks.
Especially if it's
That
like a blues singer.
just doesn't sound right. It almost doesn't matter what kind of music. It's just, you got to have some of the soul in there. You got to have some of the imperfections.
Yes.
It's really important. And the spirit and the soul and energy of the music, it comes through in contemporary music. I think it does.
It's just different, like you said.
It's different. Yeah, it's just different. And certainly to me, my music is art in the sense that I think of it as artistic, and I'm not trying to have a hit. I'm not trying to. I mean, if it happened, it would be great, but at the same time, it's art. It's an art form, and so little something being a little off is okay. And so, it depends on
Better
who
than
you,
okay. It's
and it
correct,
depends, yeah,
if you
and
will. Yeah.
and it depends on the vocalist. Some vocalists need a lot of help, and then some need very little. And then, some vocalists, this is getting a little off the topic, but we're going to stay on the vocal topic for a second. Trying to get a performance out of some vocalists is difficult in the sense that it's like, come on, reach down deep, feel it. And some
That's why
people,
we're here, Steve, is to talk about exactly what you're saying.
yeah,
Please continue.
yeah, it's important, and especially singers, and you mentioned this earlier, singers that come from a choral background, not a church choir
Right.
background,
Not a
but
Baptist. Yeah.
but like a college choir background, and they're taking voice lessons from a very trained, closer to classical and operatic than anything pop. Don't dare bend a note. And and you get in there, and then it's in fact, I worked with a female vocalist within the last couple of years, and it's like, where's your soul? I'm thinking this. I didn't say it. I'm like, where's your soul? You're being so careful. You're being so careful with these notes. It's like, feel it, let it out. Think of the emotion of the lyric, the emotion of the tune, and sing it like you mean it. And it's like,
You're like talking
couldn't get
another
there.
language to them.
Well, my suggestion was, I think it would be a good idea if you joined a local church choir and went in and got involved with it and started feeling what's going on there.
It's not every church, though, that does that.
No, that's true. That's true. So you'd have to be the right choir. But,
Right.
and this girl was like, no, I'm not going to do that. Oh, okay. Okay, well, what are you going to do? Because you're
We
not
can't
going to.
release it the way it is.
No, you can't. And it's just you got to dig deep and sing it like you mean it. It's so much more important. And then you get other singers with which that's all they know.
Yeah.
And now that can have a bad outcome as well. I know a certain singer, she was a Las Vegas singer here, pretty well known, and had a great voice. In fact, Brad, you saw her once or twice. I brought her to you. And I mean, she could sing, don't get me wrong,
Boy, she sure could.
but you try and make a suggestion, and it's like, no, 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 I can't do that. I can't do that. I can't do. I do what I do, and that's what I do.
Yeah.
But you're ending the song, every song, the same way. Let me teach you a different way. Well, that didn't work out either. But so there's got to be some kind of a middle ground there. Um, and then you get singers like our friend Jeanette.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's bring up Jeanette because she's, by the way, 3-time platinum artist that Steve has worked with a lot. He was the music director for them for many years. Group's name was Expose. Very, very hot in the late 90s. Anyway, go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, and Jeanette certainly has it all. She has soul. She knows where it should come from. Now, depending on the music, for Expose, which were known for their dance hits of the 80s into the 90s, um, that's a little bit different. That certainly doesn't allow you to uh, put a lot of emotion in it. I mean, it's party emotion. It's fun, upbeat, and,
She
and they did.
complained about that a little bit. So,
Yeah, they did some great ballads, but they were pop ballads and happy. It's always kind of a happy thing, even though it was a sad song. Um, so I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the way they did it. Who's
well, it
to
was a
say?
production company who hired the girls. So it was a little
Yeah,
different than the girls weren't the writers, they weren't the leaders of the band. It was they had to take instruction, like you said, which worked out for them.
yeah,
They took the instruction.
yeah. It worked out great. But in later years, Jeanette and I write together, and um,
She's on your new album as well, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. She co-wrote the tunes that she sings, and it's anymore. It's like, okay, how do you hear it? Just come in and do it. Just come in and do it, and then it's just a matter of technically capturing the voice in the right way. Which, after 23 years of working with her, I kind of have that
Wow.
down.
That's a great relationship.
Yeah, and so. And then we evaluate it. We talk about it. Well, what do you think? That's the kind of working relationship you want.
Yes.
It's like, if I have something to say, she takes it serious, and I don't want to get in the way.
Beautiful. Yes.
When
Thank you.
you somebody like that's expressing themselves and there's nothing wrong with it, if a phrase comes in a little early, a little late, I know I can fix that. But I don't want to be so critical that all of a sudden the singer they stop thinking emotion and they start thinking technicalities. I don't want that to happen. I don't want to ruin the vibe of wherever their head's at when they're delivering the song. So
Did I lose you?
no,
Oh, okay, good,
yeah,
good. Something happened because I've opened up Melodyne and I don't know why, but it's added something to my voice. I hope you guys don't hear it. Oh, I see. It put me in a meeting room. Oh, that was stupid. Why did I do that? Hold on just a second while I figure this out. Enter full screen. Okay, that's all right. It actually took me to their website. I don't need to download this. What are you guys doing? Apologize for the complaining, but I do not understand why that just happened. Oh, there it is. Okay, now this is better. Okay, so I don't know. I don't think I can share the video with you. Actually, I'll work on this later. This is not gonna work, but I do have Melodyne, and I'll just talk about it briefly. How I use it is not for editing, it's for learning. And what I've learned from it is that great singers, I mean, the greatest singers, let's talk about Whitney Houston, let's talk about Aretha Franklin, let's talk about Sarah Vaughan, some of the older people that were really hot, and I've looked at some of the new singers as well. I was looking at this girl that she calls herself the Pink Pantherette. I don't know if you've heard of her, but it's very cute, very pop. But anyway, I put these singers on Melodyne, and I see all kinds of imperfections. I mean, everywhere. Like this Pink Pantherette was sharp on a lot of stuff, but it's so cute and it's so up. It doesn't really grind your ear the wrong way. Like if an opera singer held a note that was sharp with their vibrato, it would be like, oh my God, turn this person off. But with this Pink Pantherette, it was okay. And I've also noticed it sometimes in the riffs where they're, there'll be a little sharp note in the riff because you can see it with Melodyne. You see exactly what's going on. And you talked about rhythm a little bit. And what blew my mind is that you cannot figure out exactly when they're going to come in or out. You cannot count. Did they come in on the beat? You cannot figure that. I mean, every once in a while they do, right? But quite often they're a little ahead of the beat or they're a little bit behind the beat. So as you were talking about how they come from that emotional perspective, my theory is that their emotions are creating these differences in rhythm. What do you think of that?
Yeah, well, I think when we're having a conversation right now, we're not thinking about the rhythm of our speech.
Right.
And so when you're just doing something natural, it just comes out. A good singer with a lot of recording experience or on stage experience, as far as that goes, will intuitively understand phrasing and kind of understand. They may not be able to tell you what beat they come in on, but they can feel it. They know if there's a pickup note or if they have to wait till the downbeat or things like that.
They're aware of the downbeat. They're just not necessarily feeling like they have to hit it every time.
Yeah, well, you don't, it depends on the melody, the rhythm of the melody. And so I don't mind it personally. If it's a good delivery, I don't mind it being a little off as long as it's not what do I want to say? Sometimes if it's a 30-second off, then I'll fix that. But
Right.
just so that everybody's arriving on the beat at the same time or starting at the same time.
Well, that goes back to my theory of, listening to it once in a live show, you'd accept it, but listening to it over and over again, like you have to as a mixer, you start to realize, well, wait a minute, I think maybe we should adjust this a little bit. And then by the time it gets on the radio and gets played over and over again, it doesn't bother anybody. Does that make sense in your editing?
Yeah, it certainly does. And somebody that engineers a lot and mixes a lot, so on and so forth, again, you're training your ear to hear for these slight imperfections. And maybe sometimes we overtrain ourselves.
Yes.
But for example, on the last album Jeanette and I worked on, I think I used Melodyne on one or two tiny little phrases. And so I sent it to the mixer. He goes, well, don't worry, I'll take care of the vocals. I go, well, they don't bother me.
I like
They
them.
sound pretty good the way they are. He goes, I think in order to be competitive in today's market, they need to be more exact. I'm like, okay, well, do what you want. And there wasn't enough of a change that it made any difference, to be honest with you.
That's good.
Unlike the one song that I sang on the album, I told him, okay, don't even try to fix it. It's supposed to be quirky and sound that way. So,
I took a look at Bob Dylan, his Tambourine Man on Melodyne. With stem splitters, which this technology is brand new. I can actually remove the vocal from the band, and then I could put it on Melodyne and see it as if I was actually looking at the track was recorded. I mean, not exactly, but pretty close. It was hard to find a note that was on key with Bob, but people loved him. I mistakenly, and Frank has left, but Frank and I were talking about this the other day on the phone. No, actually, it was who was we talking? Who was I talking to? These conversations come up quite a bit with different producers. Anyway, it was Khalid Glover is probably going to do a podcast for us. Anyway, we're talking about when we were younger, thinking that we know everything, and I'm thinking, well, Bob Dylan's a terrible singer, sings off key all the time. He's got sounds in his nose, blah 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 blah. And I remember I was saying that around a couple of girls, and they said, "Well, what are you talking about? He's so sexy." I probably went cross-eyed. I'm trying to do it again right now. I probably can't see my eyes, but really sexy, Well, over the years as a coach, I have now what I call the Bob Dylan epiphany, meaning I think he's one of the greatest singers of all time. Not because he's flat or on pitch, but because he doesn't introvert. He expresses himself without any consideration of whether it's right or wrong, because I'm sure he's heard a lot of people tell him how bad he is, or he's read it, but he somehow or another does not let that affect what he did. And I think that's a lesson for singers nowadays.
Yeah, I think that's a great example. We can certainly analyze. We should be listening to music and analyzing it, unless we're analyzing to try and learn something for our own purpose. I mean, it should be enjoyed. And he certainly delivers his material the way it needs to be delivered. I mean, it's hard to imagine anybody else doing a Bob Dylan tune.
They did do some, though.
Yeah.
Remember the Byrds did some.
Even Hendrix did like a Rolling Stone or something.
Oh yeah, yeah. So did the band that was with Mick Jagger, his band.
Oh, the Stones?
Yeah, they did the Rolling. Yeah, they did the song "The Rolling Stone."
Oh yeah, that's what they're named after. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, I've kind of learned to let it go. And just let people express themselves. The problem is when they're not expressing themselves and they're being too careful, and that's not going to reach the soul of the listener. The same way that somebody that might be a little off key, but
means what they say.
Yeah, but means what they say. I mean, how many times have we heard? You got to believe it. You got to sell it. Those are things that you use in the studio all the time, or you think about. You got to sell the tune. You got to
sell it. You have to be a little careful with that phrase, though, because that can start sounding like commercialism.
Yeah.
But I know what you mean.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, not in the sense of record sales, but you got to make people believe it. You got to make people believe that you wrote the song, even if you didn't, and it's coming from a special place in your heart or soul, even if it didn't.
I've come up with a saying for that. If you feel it, they'll feel it.
Yeah.
And I find that to be concrete, because as I'm coaching a singer, and all of a sudden emotion's starting to come out where it wasn't before, it changes my whole perception of what's going on. I become the audience at that point, not the teacher. And they'll give me goosebumps. Or I was in a recording session doing the vocal, I was crying doing the vocal production. I'm not supposed to do that, right? You're a man, but
no,
she really got to me.
Yeah, and some voices just do that. I know when I got a little older, when I was growing up, not to regress too much, but I started going to the Kansas City jazz festivals. And here I am,
fun.
15 years old. You see all the greats. And so I'm sitting with my buddy and his parents, 15 years old, and Count Basie band's up. They There's no band that's ever swung harder, rocked harder. It's just, they're an incredible band. And then Ella gets up to
Oh
sing with the
my.
Basie Orchestra.
Oh wow.
It was at the time to where she still had her legs, but they had to help her on stage. And I'm thinking, well, okay, I've seen Ella on TV, on the Ed Sullivan Show, so on and so forth. I've seen Ella, and I get what she's doing and stuff. So here we are in this huge arena full of people, barely see the stage. The Basie band comes in, Ella starts coming in, and all of a sudden, at 15 years old, I start crying uncontrollably because of the way her voice sounded in person. It sounded much different in person than it sounded on record or on television. There was, and then all of a
Well, you
sudden,
know,
I'm like,
television, they had to do it. You probably remember they had to do it a lot of lip syncing in the old TV days as well because they didn't have the broadcast equipment. Is that right?
well, they still do. I don't, it's hard
Oh,
to
okay.
say, but there was something about her, the pureness, the timbre of her voice live, that I said, even at 15 years old, now I get it. I get what the big deal is about Ella. It's like, wow, what's happening to me? And and there are times to where I'll be sitting in this a studio recording Jeanette or something, and I'll just become mesmerized. I'll be so deep into that voice. It's like,
Well,
wow.
you know, when that happens and I'm coaching, you know, I mean, it's a lesson. I say, what did you just feel? And they'll tell me, and I'll say, you know what, that's what I felt. And I'm not, you know, I'm not jiving them. I'm not trying to win them over. I really did feel something different. So that comes back to the, if they feel it, I'll feel it. So you can have confidence, which is something singers say, oh, I don't have confidence. You can have confidence that if you feel it, like Ella did, that Steve felt it too, and
Yeah.
everybody else felt it. Now, maybe there's somebody who didn't like Ella. Okay, they didn't like what she did because whatever their belief system is didn't match. But they felt it anyway, and that's why they didn't like her.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, why do we want to perform music anyway? I mean, why?
I love that question.
Why do you want to be a singer? Why? I mean, is it to pick up guys? Is it to pick up girls? Sometimes. But seriously, there is something in you that wants out.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to tap into that, and you got to let it out. And at first, it may not be, the monster may not be controllable, but you can learn to control it. And I think some people are afraid, are just afraid of that. And maybe it's happened a few times and they're like, whoa, what just happened? I don't know. But it's a form of expressing ourselves. Um, so,
You know, you're right about that, and I've seen it where I have coached the emotion out of the person, and then they're like introvert because they felt something that they weren't expecting to feel, or maybe they thought they shouldn't. And we're here to say you should.
yeah, yeah,
If,
go
if
for it.
should's not really a very good word in this respect, but yes, do it, please. We want to hear that.
Yeah, especially at the, in the onset of, first of all, if a singer says, I'm going to go to Brad because I want to be a better singer, I want to learn things and learn how to not only gain confidence in my voice, but how to do certain things technically as well. Okay. Well, at first, you may not be real comfortable with that, but I guarantee you it's okay with Brad. I mean, I'm speaking for you and I shouldn't do that,
No, no,
but
no, that's why you're here. I'm paying him for this. This is a commercial.
but seriously, let it out. I mean, because that's the idea. It's to express yourself. Um, we don't express ourselves all the same way. Some people don't talk, but you give them an instrument and they talk through their instrument. And if your instrument is the voice, then it's the same thing.
I worked with, oh, now her name's not going to come to me. Getting too old to remember any people's names. Uh, oh, she was on Cheers for a while. She replaced the original actress. Anyway, she's really gregarious on TV. I mean, just really out there. In her voice lessons, she was very shy. She's a very shy person. And it wasn't just because she was in a voice lesson. This is something that we notice in the industry that's kind of weird. Somebody could be just totally out there on stage, whole different personality. And then you work with them off stage, and it's like, they're just not like that at all. It's really, I'm not going to say it's bizarre, but it's something a lot of people don't know about.
Well, Prince was like that.
Oh, I bet, yeah.
Yeah. I met Prince once, and it was actually after a Wayne Newton show.
Oh,
And I was leaving the showroom, walking through, and there was a man, a big man holding a wheelchair, and in the wheelchair was a small man wearing a hoodie, just sitting there. And so I went by and said, "Hi, is there anything I can help you with?" And, "Well, we're waiting to see," the big guy said, "We're waiting to see Wayne." And I said, "Okay, well, would you like me to tell him you're here, or would you like me to take you to him?" "Oh, no, it's okay. He knows we're here. We'll wait." I said, "Okay, well, thank you very much. And, if there's nothing I can do, I'm going to go to my room." And then the guy in the chair grabbed me by the wrist and pulled me down to him and said, "Hey, I really like your guitar playing." He was like, "Oh, well, that's nice." I'm not going to go into all the nice things he said, but he said
oh,
quite
come
a
on.
bit. And I said, "So do you play guitar?" He goes,
Oh, we actually have a freeze.
so we had a really nice discussion, real intimate discussion. And I'm saying, "Okay, well, I'm going to go now." So I left. The next night, Wayne's assistant came in the dressing room before the show and says, "Hey, did anybody see Prince last night?" And we're like, "No, he was in the, people come to see Wayne all the time, and celebrities." And I said, No, where was he sitting?" He goes, "He was in a wheelchair, dressed in a hoodie." It's like, I talked to him and met him and didn't even know it was him.
Yeah.
But he was really, really like kind of shy. And I talked to somebody else that had worked with him in the studio, and they said the same thing. I mean, when you're working on music, it's one thing, but just a lot of people are real introverts until they start expressing themselves through their art form,
I was
which,
just hearing a woman talk about how you can do things on stage you would never do off stage. Can you imagine Rod Stewart, talking to somebody going, "If you think I'm sexy, do you want my body?" I'm sure all the women talking to him would go, "Oh yeah, I want your body." But on stage he can do it, and they're going crazy. "Oh yeah, we want your body."
yeah, I mean,
Two different worlds.
yeah, and it's kind of interesting that some entertainers, they seem to like put on their character suit before they go out on stage and get
But
in.
it is them, some of them.
Yeah. So it's the music's quite a deal.
Well, let me summarize something, and then we'll open it up for questions. So, my impetus to doing this is I find a lot of singers believe that they should always be perfectly on pitch, they should always have perfect vowel shapes, and they should always be perfectly on rhythm. And my teacher, my mentor, Seth Riggs, incredible coach. So glad I was with him, so glad I was his partner. Learned so much about vocal technique and about really how to sing naturally, because his belief about technique was to sing naturally, to remove blockage, not necessarily create some weird sound that everybody thinks you should create. But his thing was, if you're not perfectly on pitch, there's something wrong with your technique. You're straining or something like that. And so for a while I taught that, but now I don't. If they're straining, I will help them with the straining. But if they're flat, and they should be, if that's the style, then I leave it alone. Or I even let them know, hey, this was perfect. You were a little bit flat. And they're looking at me like, really? I was a little bit flat? Yeah, you were a little bit flat. And it felt great. And they're going, really? I did a podcast for, my names are, I'm going to have to get a list of people. Anyway, I did a podcast where they interviewed me, and I said, what did I say? No. What was I talking about, Stephen?
Apples.
Apples. So thank you.
Apples,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh no, I was telling her. Okay, she was also one of my students, and she's a rapper, more of a rapper, but she wanted to be able to do some singing too. And when I told her that singers don't need to always be on pitch and always on rhythm, she went, "Really? Shoo! Oh, that's a relief." And I said, yes, you are free to create. You don't have these rules that you have to follow. And so I want people to hear it from you, Stephen, that if they want to be ready for you to produce them and have a great experience, that in a way that what you were talking about earlier, they should not go in there thinking, this is a recording, so I need to be perfect. I need to be right on pitch. I need to be right on the rhythm. Because this is a recording. Sometimes people think of a recording as a contest, like they're going to the Olympics and they're going to be judged, or, they got to get a 10 or a 9.5 or whatever. No, it's not that way at all. It's how did it feel, right? Right, Stephen?
The process of recording is to capture a moment, capture a performance. No matter what that,
Get that on the camera.
yeah, I mean, that's the most important thing, is to capture performance. There have been some times to where somebody will come in and it's like, okay, well, let's do a run through, and we just play it through it, and I don't record, and I'm kicking myself in the seat of the pants because I didn't record, right? I mean, it was just there.
You
First
mentioned your
take.
work with Quincy Jones. Do you know his theory on that?
No.
Since digital came around?
No.
He records everything.
Oh, yeah, I do too.
Yeah, nowadays, yeah, because you don't have to worry about running out of tape.
Right, right. And yeah, I mean, I don't know how many times that first one is the best one, or it's close enough to, okay, well, let's just do it the same way a few more times. And I'm thinking, I'm comping the vocal in my head or on paper as we go, and I'm thinking, okay, I got it. I can put it together. That's good. No problem. Now, by comping, I mean I'm combining takes to make one good take, just for anybody that's not sure what that is.
Well, now you hear Billie Eilish is, admitting they did 80 or 90 takes and then comped them all together to create, what we're hearing.
Okay, well,
I'm a little surprised about that because her style is very earthy.
I'm surprised to hear that. And comping now digitally is so much easier and different than it was in the old days, or even as an engineer, anybody that's old enough to have engineered with tape, when you do a punch on a really good take, no matter what the instrument is, it's like it can be very stressful because
Yeah.
you can ruin you could ruin that take just by not punching in and out at the right times. I mean, before automation even.
Well, and then the artists too, if they come in with no feel now because it's a punch,
Yeah,
they've lost the storyline.
yeah. So generally, in order to take care of that, I back up, a few lines and let them sing into it. And so I try and phrase it the same way. You catch them on their breaths or in the quiet spots if you can.
It's great advice.
But yeah, it's there's such a thing as I don't know, I can't say the exact phrase, but some people are very good at recording until the red light comes on.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
all of a
I've heard
sudden it's
that
like,
called
oh,
mic fright or record fright. Yeah.
yeah, it's something like that, right? And it's like, don't worry about it.
We're
Just
just here to have a good time.
That's right. And again, recording is just the art of capturing a performance. And so perform.
Well, I don't necessarily pitch this, but a lot of the major recording studios in LA have wet bars in them so that they can drink. And who knows what else. But some people, they can't release unless they're a little bit high.
Yeah,
They
sure.
can't recreate the party mode, and that's a tough thing too. You're standing in this booth. There's nobody. You can't see anybody. Especially some producers, they don't even want to see the artist. They want to make sure that what they're hearing is coming out without seeing the artist. Their facial expressions or whatever are not affecting their ability to decide whether it was a good vocal or not.
Yeah, take the eyes away from
Yeah,
the
yeah, exactly.
process.
So here's the poor artist trying to feel it with nobody to communicate with. Now, obviously, they know you're listening, but and there's another. I won't tell that story because it's well. There was just very quickly. Whitney Houston was singing in the studio, and she was singing to one guy sitting there, and he didn't know if she was hitting on him or what. He didn't know why she picked him out and why she was focusing on him. But later she said, "Thank you so much for just hanging there. I sang to you because I needed somebody. I needed to communicate." Yeah.
Well, I've had experiences with singers going into the booth asking if it's okay to put something up over the window
Yeah.
because they don't want you to see them.
Yeah, that's a different aspect too.
Yeah. And so, of course, go ahead.
Yeah, do what it takes.
Yeah.
Quick story about what you were talking about. How to catch on the internet. The internet's a wonderful tool. Linda Perry, who produced Christina Aguilera. Hey, remembered the name. By the way, that actress I was talking about was Kirstie Alley,
Okay.
who was very shy. And the guitar player was for Led Zeppelin. I was trying to Jimmy Page.
Yeah.
Yeah, the names come later when when I don't want them. Anyway, so they were talking about the recording Beautiful. And actually, it was just Linda talking. Christina was involved. And she was saying that they had a great take. And they said, "This is beautiful. This is not, no pun intended. This is beautiful. This is exactly what we want." And Christina said, "I think I can do it better." And Linda had to put her foot down and say, "No, that's it. This is what, we're done. It feels good." Christina says off on the side, says, "Listen, give me a couple of months. I know I can come back and do it better." I mean, Christina was all about, I can be perfect. I can be better. And Linda said, "No, no, no, don't go there." Well, Linda had to concede and say, "Okay, a couple of months from now, we'll try it again." So a couple of months go by and they get in the studio and Christina tries to sing it. And Linda says, about, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes into it, she says, "Nope, we're done. Not doing this. Sorry." So again, singers, don't try to be perfect. Don't think you can go back and do it better. Listen to your producer. We talked about this with Corey Jacobs. Listen to your producer and trust them. They're your audience. If you don't trust them, don't hire them. Or if it's a record contract and you're stuck with that producer, go back and talk to the record company or something. But there's got to be this chemistry. Would you say that's pretty right on?
Yeah, I think so. And, obviously it's just like any relationship. Sometimes it's immediate. Sometimes a relationship builds and you build some trust with somebody, especially if it's somebody you don't really know. And sometimes on something as a producer, I don't know if everybody's heard these stories, but sometimes a producer will tell the story about, yeah, I really pissed him off to get that performance out of him.
Yeah, I've heard
And
that.
it's like, I've never done that intentionally.
Me neither.
However, I'll try and get somebody worked up a little bit, not mad at me, but sometimes they end up mad at me. But sometimes that's what it takes. Get them revved up a little bit, especially if they're lacking in energy. But they got to trust you. And then when it's all done, it's like, see what that sounds like now.
Hmm.
And then usually they understand. Okay, yeah, I see how the early ones were low energy and everything. And I don't know. It's a beautiful experience.
Hmm.
Music is, whether you're creating it, recording it, performing it. And some people have their preferences. They songwriters tend to enjoy creating it. Um, Record engineers and producers love to capture it and record it, and musicians a lot of times love to perform it. And um, I like all of it,
Yeah.
certainly.
Well, it's your lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's your life, and all the things that have happened to you is because you made it your lifestyle. That's the way I hear it.
Yeah, I've certainly used my musicianship to supplement when the recording aspect was a little low, taking a little lull in it, and used my studio sense when things, were a little, there's a lull in the performing or whatever. So I guess I took my dad's advice,
Yeah.
do it all or play it all. And
Yeah. As long as you don't become a jack of all trades and a master of none, right?
maybe I have, I don't
Oh,
know.
doesn't sound like it. Sounds like you're pretty right on. In other words, you can get too much into being everything, right? It'd be the perfect classical guitarist, the perfect jazz player, the perfect rock player. That would be tough to be the best jazz player and the best classical player and the best rock player and the best country player. I just think that would be very difficult.
Yeah, and yes, you're right. And you just used a term that I think it's important for uh, musicians, singers, not that singers aren't musicians, but they aren't in terms of the
But
musicians union. Uh,
they don't have something in their hands that they're playing
but
on
but
their
you
lips.
but you used the term the best,
Hmm.
and that's something that I always try to let people know when I feel like they're competing or whatever. It's like it's not a competition.
That's right.
It's not. I mean, if you looked at a Rembrandt and a Picasso on the same wall, which could you tell me which one's the best? You can tell me which one you like more than the other,
Sure.
but you can't tell me one's actually better than the other. It's just what you prefer. And so that's art, and music is an art form. So do it
So we
your way.
recommend we recommend stay away from America's Got Talent and American Idol and the voice. That's not what it's about, guys. It's not beating the other artist.
No, I often wonder, what that's like.
It's tough.
And I know I've met some finalists. In fact, I
Hmm.
tried to send a finalist within the last couple of years to you, Brad,
Oh, thank you.
and I told you expect a call, and he never called. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
What are you thinking?
Well, they get a lot of coaching on those shows.
Oh yeah, I know they do, but
But
not.
what I don't like about it is they foster the show itself. Maybe they don't talk to the artists directly about this, but the whole show fosters the competitive aspect of it. That's the drama, besides the fact that, well, maybe your father died or, your mother's in a wheelchair or whatever they use. But when you're in front of an audience or you're in front of that microphone, it's just you doing your thing, and then you let people decide whether they like it or not. But you don't say, okay, that person's better than I was. I better be better now. Or I'm better than that person. They're terrible. Stay away from that kind of thinking, right?
Yeah, it's not a competition, uh, especially at if you want to create a a lifestyle and a career at it. You can't go in with the idea that you have to be better than everybody, or you might see somebody that's better at something than you and improve your skills based upon what you recognize in that person. But and I think we all do that. But yeah, it's not a competition.
Yeah, you learn from others. You learn from people who know things you don't know.
Right,
And then you make it yours.
right.
Well, I better open up for questions because we've actually gone for an
Okay.
hour and a half. So everybody, there'll be just a moment here where the audio will be off as we switch from FarPlay for the audio to Zoom. And David Liao is here to help me if I mess this up. So just, yeah, there he is. So hold on just a moment.
Okay, I will be giving instructions.
All right. Thanks, David. David is like one of the best customer support people I have ever worked with, and he's going to help me now in this live situation. Okay, David,
Okay,
instead of me guessing or reading the list, just go ahead and direct me through what to do here.
and while we do this, this might be a good time for all the audience members who would like to participate in the Q&A to turn on their cameras if they would like.
Yeah.
So first, David, myself, and Steve are going to leave the FarPlay conversation, and I'm going to say what to do, and then we're going to do it because there's going to be an audio blackout if when we do this. So Steve and I are going to click leave in FarPlay, and then in Zoom we're going to click the join audio icon that's at the bottom left corner of the screen. And if it says something like choose Wi-Fi, choose that. And then when you're connected again, please say I switched to Zoom so people know.
Yes,
Okay,
I'm on Zoom now.
gonna go. So you go ahead, Steve, and I'm also gonna.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it a little out of order, and I'm gonna join Zoom audio too. S- Steve, are you on Zoom now?
I am on Zoom.
Very good. Okay, good. Now, Brad, let's see. We're gonna do a couple things, and I'm gonna have to type something in the chat because there's gonna be an audio blackout. Brad, go ahead and click leave in FarPlay and then start reading the Zoom chat.
Okay. All right. Okay. And then I muted myself.
Yeah, but now we can hear you on
Okay.
Zoom.
Everybody we're good now on Zoom? All right. Okay. Anyone want to ask a question? Oh, I want to say something about David real quick. Uh, we were talking about, he's been on a lot of these podcasts, which is great. I really appreciate him. But he said, really, singers get up and they've never used headphones or they've never heard monitors and they get up and think they could just perform? I thought that was great. What a great question. Yes, singers, you got to have some experience in what you're doing before you get in front of an audience or try to do a record that you can sell. Okay, it looks like Mayat's video's hot. You want to ask a question, Mayat? You can. Oh, yeah, I think you have to unmute your mic, or do I have to do it? Ask to unmute. Okay. Do I have to click on that? Lily just turned on her mic. I cannot hear you, Mayat. Ask to unmute. Is that okay? Did I give you permission? Did that work? There you go. Okay.
Hello, hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Hi, Matt.
Let everybody unmute here.
Doing pretty good. Just attended one of my great niece's wedding, um, and I was hustling trying to make sure I could make this.
Thank you.
Doing a little bit different this time. I'm on my phone I'm in Long Beach right now.
Oh, okay.
Um, okay, I've been sitting here listening to this the whole time. I am glad that you guys did this one. Um, I'm sitting here high fiving you guys um, on a whole bunch of stuff. Like when you talked about the guitar not being accepted, not being an instrument,
Wow.
um, where, well, number one, you guys had to figure it out. Number one, there wasn't much on it, and then you couldn't go say you go to school and they're not really teaching that type of thing. I was just having this type of argument or conversation with somebody um, about every time there's something new that's created, there's this whole rigmarole you have to go through, and then people figure it out over time, and it's in the universities or whatever. It's at music school, but you guys, like with the guitar, you guys are pioneers with that. Like I view autotune as a one of the things uses for me for autotune is it's a musical instrument, a vocal instrument, or just it's a musical instrument that you can play. You'll have a bunch of people doing very little effort, and then some people putting in a lot of effort and becoming elite and doing, kicking butt at it basically. Um, but this whole conversation that you guys did, it just it answered questions to stuff I wasn't even thinking about that were bugging me. Like I said, like the guitar thing, it was a new instrument, you know. Um, so anyway, when you well, both of you went through it as you guys were going through. So this is more for both of you. As you guys were going through, what was it like going through the stuff when something new would come in and you guys would like, but the previous generation, let's just say, hated on it? What was it like as you guys were going through that? Um, before it became mainstream or whatever. What was that like? How much stress was it? What was going on?
So let Steve go first, and then I've, because I think our experiences are going to be quite different. This is a great question. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Steve.
I'll give an example. I remember uh, I could take my guitar to school and play, on breaks, play the guitar. Everybody was totally cool with that. But if I had a church meeting afterwards, I was not allowed to even bring my guitar into the church at that point. And
Hi.
and I was, I mean, the girls, we had twin girls in my age. We were really close and they dug music and everything. And I knew their dad, who was the pastor. And it's like, I can't believe that they wouldn't let me just like bring my guitar in and just set it down in the church. No, there's, if any of the old people see that, they're going to think you're bringing the devil into the
Oh
church.
my. Wow.
Right. And it's like,
I never heard this
okay,
before.
but I knew that that was temporary. I didn't know how temporary, but I knew it was temporary, and eventually things would change. Of course, as the older generations, for lack of a better terms, die off, and the younger generations who are more into contemporary music, then things become allowed. Now, almost every church has a praise band, not an entire band playing contemporary Christian music, which could be anything from a heavy metal type of thing to pop thing to country thing to whatever. Now it's totally acceptable. So it didn't really bother me. I kind of dug it because it made me feel like a rebel
Yeah.
just a little bit. It's like, not that I wanted to do the wrong thing, but it kind of made me think, okay, am I doing something bad? Am I a bad person because I have a guitar? No, I don't think so. It really made me reflect on a lot of aspects of life, just that little experience. And then in order, I got a couple different scholarships for some different schools. And one of them was to the Eastman School of Music in New York. and it was all arranged through this uh, music theory teacher from Hungary. Maybe she'd studied there, I can't remember. And she had it set up. I could go there and stay with a family and study guitar, but I had to study classical guitar. Now, for a young kid who was more into Deep Purple and Jimi Hendrix and whatever is playing on the radio, right? It's like, that's not what I want to do. I want to be a rock star, you know? And so, uh, and plus the fact that coming from where I did, for me, going from the dirt to New York City just wasn't going to happen. I had no confidence. I had no ability to be able to handle that. I'd never been to a city like that, except Kansas City, and that's not comparable. So for me, in order to uh, kind of take baby steps, I went from the country to a small junior college, a town of 50,000, to another town of 250,000, to Kansas City, which was much bigger, and then from there to LA, which we all know about LA. So I had to take some steps to gain confidence on what do you do in a new town? What do you know? How do you get known? What do you, so on and so forth. But so that was part of the new aspect to me, as much as getting other people to accept the instrument that I played. Um, so I hope that I answered your
Yes.
question or gave some insight as to my experience with it.
Yes.
Well, mine was a little bit the same, but quite different. So I was playing trumpet in elementary school, and apparently I was doing well. And so when we went to junior high, the elementary teacher, band teacher, suggested that they put me in concert band right away in junior high, and not make me work up to it. Well, the guy that ran the concert band was, if you will, a monster. Uh, he was screaming at everybody, and I remember the main phrase that I remember that he said that really turned me off was he says, "Can't you guys count to four?" Like, I mean, we were all seventh graders. Of course, we could count to four. It was just absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, I I never went back there again. And there was a guy in one of my classes who played guitar, and he was doing the top 40 stuff, you know, the Beatles, the Monkees, the Apple, the Animals, you know. That was an interesting era for names of bands. But I said, well, you know, I'd like to be in your band. I'd like to be a singer. And he says, well, he says, but if I'll let you be a singer if you learn how to play bass. But where to answer your question, I did it. It was the change of rebellion. It was the world I could go into that no one wanted me to be. There was no authorities who wanted me to play in a rock band. There was no one saying, you go play in a rock band or we're going to put you in jail. In other words, if you go to school and you don't go, they will put you in a jail. The whole authoritarian thing was just something that I grew up being totally against. My dad said I was a really tough kid to raise. But yeah, and I think there's stories about people who, like Steve, who learned classical music at a very young age, like especially pianists are quite often brought up to play classical music that they don't want to play when they're 5 years old, 6 years old, and so forth. But then they get to be 13, 15 years old. They're quite proficient at classical, but they're not ever going to play it again. And they start learning by ear at that point. And that's when their rebellion comes out. You know, people like Pat Benatar, who was trained classically as a singer, and then she used a little bit of that on their stuff, but basically she just came out and gussed it out. Certainly not what you'd learn from a classical voice teacher. So yeah, I think a lot of us have done it out of rebellion. Not everybody, but that's one of the stories. So, what other questions do we have?
That authoritarian stuff, I understand that everything has its place,
Hmm.
um, because you need authorities on stuff. But when something new comes in, or when we talk about things sounding the same, like you'd hear in rock, the snare has to be done this way with this specific microphone and have this specific sound. Everything, as Steve was talking about, starts sounding the same, and we humans we get bored. Like you can get so bored that AI itself might become the sound that everybody likes simply because it's new.
Yeah, I've
Just
heard of AI. You know, you talk about recording. I've heard of AI recording chains that you can buy.
yeah, yeah. And everything that people have said that AI can't do, AI keeps saying, hold my beer, and
Mhm.
just keeps inching towards that. Um, like I've been doing what we call bumping posts of what we said about AI, say 10 years ago. And AI is way beyond what we said it couldn't do. But well, first, before we on AI, on that pitch stuff, there's a thing where tuning, they talk about tuning drums.
Mhm.
And a lot of us have had the experience where we're not, we don't hear pitch like the authorities would, authorities of pitch. But we'll have something that'll have us make what we call the stank face, like, ugh, I love that. Somebody will say that the drums are wrong, they'll go tune it, and that feeling will go away. But that person with the pitch authority, who's the pitch authority, will say, yeah, that's right. And the reality is, for our genre of music, or for what we want, it doesn't. They shouldn't be the authority. And so sometimes the old crew, we all learn it. They can't be the authority on everything. But I like that idea where you guys said you got to be the rebels, uh, and you guys actually embraced it. Um,
It's the
that's
only way
actually
I could live. I mean, I just couldn't do what people told me to do. That just was not in me.
Yeah, right.
So
Yeah.
Lily has put her hand up. So let's let her come in, and then of course Natasha wants to talk too. So go ahead, Lily. What questions do you have of us?
Hi, I'm so glad I'm here to listen to
I'm
this
glad you are too.
because I am definitely a rebel. Of course, I do not know anything about music, but my daughter definitely is training with Brad, just
She's eight
getting
years
over.
old, by the way, guys.
Yes. And so the thing is, she is playing piano and she's playing classical music. And I know that her teacher is always saying, you need to be on beat, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And I'm always saying, oh, it doesn't matter, So it's always frustrating for him because he's constantly trying to put it in their head that things need to be done, accurately. But for me, I'm just like, oh, okay, whatever. But here's my thing: is that that's my concern is that when she's being classically trained in piano, but I'm trying to transition her to where I want her teacher to start kind of taking her out of classical music and putting her into more pop or other genres because I didn't want her to fit into a mold of classical because it's so strict and so um, restrictive, I guess. Maybe it's the wrong word. Um, but my thing is that with classical music, does that is it going to hinder her later on? Because it sounds like it will eventually something she's going to leave and she'll have to learn it. Some if she wants to go into pop, she's going to have to completely forget everything she's learned and go into something different or learn it differently now in piano.
Okay, Steve, go ahead.
Okay, so what I have to say about that is you have to get the fundamentals of music. The fundamentals of music pertain to all genres of music, counting, subdivision, uh, reading the notes, knowing different, chord structure. All this kind of stuff relates to every kind of music. So it, it it sounds to me like I don't know how long she's been in music, formal music, in terms of learning these fundamentals, but that's really important. It doesn't seem like it. It doesn't seem like the Beatles or Eric Clapton or some of the contemporary artists. It doesn't seem
Oh no.
He froze for a
that
second.
you know how to
There he goes.
count music and know how to feel the beats, know what a backbeat is, know what a downbeat is. Downbeat would be like beat one, and usually the backbeats on two and four,
And that's
just basically.
contemporary.
That's contemporary. But you need to understand that. And because all of these fundamentals, and it's like the early stages of music theory. They are the language of musicians. They are how musicians speak to each other and communicate with each other. If you're working in the studio or in a garage with your friends, in order to explain something or understand something that the rest of them are doing, you need to be able to communicate in musical terms, in the musical language. So I think I get what you're saying and where you'd like her to be headed, but the fundamentals are vitally important no matter what your end game is or what your goals are. So they apply to everything.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, I think one of the things that Steve is saying is that, and I remember, when my drummer used to educate me on beats. Wait a minute, you're doing a 16 bar solo. You need to know when that feel is over and when to start again. So yeah, but anyway, I'm working with her daughter, and what I have her doing is I'm having her imitate the exact vocal, uh, like she likes Miley Cyrus right now. So we're having her imitate the exact phrasing, where she has to learn it by feel because again you can't count it. But as Steve was saying though, these singers have a sense of where the beat is. They may be playing on top of it, but that doesn't mean that they don't know where the downbeat is.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, Natasha wanted to ask something. It's good to see you again. Oh,
Hi.
oh, there you go. You unmuted yourself. Good.
Hi. Yeah, so I had a question for, is it Steven? I'm sorry,
Yeah,
said it wrong.
Steve.
Yeah.
Steve.
So, like recently I'm making an album, but recently I've been listening to like different genres of music. And one thing that I wanted to find out is, I don't know if it's like a really broad, vague question, but so when you get a song that's like really guitar centric, like the intro's just blasting, like I'm trying to think of some examples, like I don't know, The Darkness, I Believe in a Thing Called Love, and you just get that like crazy guitar that like bounces in the beginning. Everyone's like, whoa. Is there like how do you do that? I know that's kind of like a very broad like question, but like is it, obviously there's a field, but are there any particular like production techniques? Is there particular mics like this? And then also the other thing I wanted to ask is like what would be some of your favorite like tricks to get that kind of like um crazy bounce? And then the other question that I have for like Stephen and everyone is so obviously when you make an album you want it to be a personal representation of yourself. So if a personal representation of yourself is that like okay you like some influences from pop, influences from rock, influences from R&B, is that allowed? Because I've heard it said to me that the what your album needs to have like a certain vibe, so has to stick within a like a is it true that you have to have an album sit within a certain framework? And like what research has been done in terms of like like from an audience point of view that would kind of like ascertain like why people are would say that, like if you just want to make an album that's got influences from
I
you
I
know
uh,
like different areas.
I I'm gonna talk about your second question first. It's a good question because it depends on what you're going to do with it, I think. If you really want, I don't know, I struggle with this myself. Brad knows some of my music. Certainly, the last album had a variety of influences on it. Uh, but I'm not making music to try and sell to the masses in a specific genre. However, if you are, there's nothing wrong with having a being a pop influence and having a little bit of reggae in it, or having a little bit of any type of other element genre in within that. The factor that's going to tie it all together is you. If you're the singer and you're singing on everything, you are the glue that ties all of this together. So I know that in a lot of cases, modern music, modern albums, from from the first track to the last track seems to all kind of sound the same. Uh, and you got to wonder, do they hear music any other way? Or, and I'm not being negative by that. I'm just wondering, is this just the way they make music, or is it the way the producer's making music for them to sell, to be more um, viable in a commercial sense? Um, or are they afraid to add a Bo Diddley beat in something, or do a little reggae, or do a little this, or do a little that, or add an acoustic guitar when most of it's an electric, or um I don't know. For me personally, most of the albums I loved growing up had a variety of music. You listen to the Beatles, they were a band in the 60s, by the way.
Very rebellious too.
You listen to them and every song has its own identity. Every song could be totally different. And everybody seemed to love that. Why is it that some people don't love that? I don't know. I'm not really sure of the answer to that. But again, the glue is you. Maybe the writer, the singer, and you're playing an instrument or two on it. Well, you're the glue that's going to tie all of it together. Um, and then back in terms of the guitar production question, I apologize. I don't know the song or the group that you're mentioning, but if I did know it, I would probably have something to say about it.
I play
And
it.
you can, or
Like,
you can get a hold of me, uh,
okay.
get my
No, I'd
contact
like to, no, I want to
information.
hear it now.
So it's a basically I just really love, so I'd love to get your like details as well, because I always have 10,000 questions, as Mark knows. I'm like that person. But basically it's just like, it's just really, as Mark says, dope.
Mhm.
And I don't know, I just love it. And I think, like, even if you're making a pop album, it's like, well, like, why not have, something that you think is awesome. So I'm just going to play the intro, but like, you've definitely heard it. So let me play it. Well, play the wrong song. Okay, there we go.
If it's playing, I can't hear it. That's weird. Yeah, I guess you need to put it closer to the mic.
There may be severe background noise reduction in Zoom.
Oh,
You know what?
yeah.
Let me,
That's a good point, Dave. She needs to change her settings.
okay, so let me try that again. I'm like desperate for this question. All right, so here we go.
I think you're gonna have to change your Zoom vocal settings.
Oh, I don't know how to do that.
Go ahead, David. You're better at it than I am.
Natasha, can you look at the bottom
Yeah,
left corner of the screen and find the
yeah,
audio button? It looks like a microphone.
yeah.
Okay, there should be a little caret right next to it. Click the caret that's right next to the audio button, and there's like a list of some things, some menu
I got it.
items. Near the bottom of that list, there should be a thing that says audio settings. Okay, go ahead and click that. Okay. Now there will be like some level meters, but then underneath the level meters, there might be a section that's called audio profile.
Yeah, got it.
Okay, so there are a couple things in there. You're probably set to something like Zoom background noise removal for now.
Yeah, it does.
Um, okay, now there are a couple other options underneath. Is there one that says original sound for musicians?
Yes. Do I click
Okay,
it?
yes. So just a little warning, there may be an echo issue, so we're not going to leave it on that forever because you're not using headphones, but we'll just use it for now so that we can listen to
Have
the
an
music.
Echo cancellation. Shall I put it on or
Leave it off for now.
off?
And
Okay.
then click to check mark high fidelity music mode if it's not
Yeah, got
already
it.
check marked. Okay. Um, I think it's actually on, but I'm not sure. Can you go ahead and play a little bit?
Okay. Let me do this again.
We might have to press X or something. Okay, so I think we have to like close this. Let me just make sure. Yes, so to make sure it's right now original sound. Oh, I'm stupid. There's one more thing we have to do. Okay, go ahead and close this audio settings window. Okay.
Okay, get rid of it.
And then now you're back inside the Zoom window with all of us, right? Okay, so if you wiggle your mouse a little bit toward the top right corner of the Zoom window, you should see some new text that wasn't there before. It says original sound for musicians. And I think it says like original sound for musicians off at the top right corner, near the top right
Yeah,
corner.
got
You
it.
might,
Let's
yeah,
just put it on. Put it on.
okay. There's the echo.
There's the echo.
Okay.
Play the clip and then we'll turn
Play
that
the
off.
clip and then we'll turn that off.
Okay, right. Hold on.
Oh.
Can you hear it? That was the intro. Did you
Okay,
hear
now
it?
we have, yes.
Okay, now we have, yes.
Now we have to
Okay.
turn off the
Now we have to
original
turn off
sound.
the original sound.
Okay, so turn it.
Go to the, oh, good. I think it's taken care of, yes. Okay.
Did everyone hear it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got my beat going.
So do you play guitar?
No.
No.
I
Okay.
just I just want dope everything, and that to me is like I love it.
That's great. I love inquisitive minds. I don't know. It sounds to me like it's a guitar with a fuzz pedal on it and just played with some attitude. And do you know what that means when I say that?
No, but I'm gonna Google the hell out of it.
Okay. Well,
Oh,
I'm
fuzz
more than
pedal, whatever.
happy to answer more questions, off this podcast if Brad can put you in touch with me or
Sure, at the end,
That would be
we can put any information in the chat box that we're comfortable with as far as, people being able to contact us.
okay. Is that okay?
yeah. So essentially, it's just like I always have this thing in my head where I'm like when I'm sort of trying to like map out and my album, and I'm like, right, I want there to be like at least maybe like song twos like that, but then you're like, hold on a second. If you're gonna bother doing it, the guitar needs to be like so out of this world, otherwise don't bother. So that's like a really, really important question for me right now. I'm just like, I really, really want to know how to get it because I know guitar players in like London and stuff, but like I really want that like like kind of
I'd
like oh
say I'm sorry. I would say most guitar players know how to get that sound. And
But
okay.
can they
and
feel it? I guess she's asking about the
Like
feel.
crazy, like this is
well,
crazy. I want
it's an attitude, if the song calls for that attitude, I mean, you got to play with attitude. A studio musician has to learn to play with an attitude that can be recognized sonically because they're never going to be seen. You can't see them performing. You can't see them headbanging and stuff. You got to sense that they're doing that by the attitude in which they play. And so uh it's I don't know, sounds like a pretty easy thing to do.
No,
I
I like it. It comes back to what we talked about a little bit before, where you've got to feel it, and and in the studio, no one can see you, like he said, right? So, but if you feel it, it will come through sonically, as you said. And same thing for singers. If you feel it, we'll feel it too, even though we can't see you.
Natasha, I have a question. Are you a rebel?
um so I'll tell you in what context. So basically, so I grew up in like academically selective, like school in Manchester, and so I was basically, but my whole family is like very academic, but like to the point of like, you know, a little bit boring, I would say, but like, you know, very high expectations. And I think like for me, um, in terms of that, I'm a rebel. But I don't know like if I'm a rebel in terms of like the wider you know, the wider definition of the term. I'm probably not that kind of rebel, but I'm definitely like a rebel when it comes to like people that go to Oxford, basically. So I'm like, yeah, but I don't
There
do
you go.
drugs or anything. So yeah, but I like I want to like I think in terms of I really I'm making up and I really want it to be like a tr true representation of me, definitely. But also, you know, I think when it's the first time you do something, like it's like it's so exciting and you just want everything to be perfect. And you know, like I understand this thing about perfectionism, but I think like there's also something to you wanting something to be just really awesome, as in like, you know, your work, like it's your work that you're putting out there. So like, you know, yes, there is this thing like don't try to be perfect, but I think also like, I mean, like a conversation I had with Mark, like there's a level of like, I keep saying the word dope, but like this level of dopeness that you, if you're not, you've got to like try at least to make it
Well,
really great.
keep in mind, keep in mind, and I've said this several times, music is an art form. So you definitely have a vision of what you want. And I'd say go for it. Just go for it. You probably need somebody to help you uh, find those, you know, that understands what you're trying to convey and trying to get and can help you get that, help you achieve that. Um, and making records is it's a learning process too. I mean, you
Yeah.
just got to dig in and go for it. And so I can tell that you have a vision. I can tell that you hear the vision of the music in your head, and I'd love to hear your album.
I've got an
Thank you so
exercise
much.
for you, Natasha. Now, I only coach one-on-one, but I think this particular suggestion can be used without me worrying about whether people understand it or not. So when you write your lyrics, after you've written them, you know, typed them out or whatever, under space, you know, put a space below them, whether you're typing or handwriting, and write the emotion that you feel of every phrase. And this, yeah, it's a very interesting thing that's going to happen. When we talk, I'll make a little bit of a fool of myself here. If I'm talking and I'm feeling pretty good right now, but all of a sudden, you know, somebody walks in and says, your cat just died. Okay. Well, my voice is going to change. It's going to change pitch. It's going to change color. Things are happening now that weren't happening 30 seconds ago. Okay, so as you go through, I'll go back to normal. As you go through and write these things out, you're going to say, well, I feel very sad here. I feel ambivalent here. This is just a part of the story that I'm not really caring a whole lot about, but I am saying it because it's leading to something else. Or you can say, you know, I feel like telling the world to F off right here, you know, whatever. And you will find that there's a roller coaster that you have written emotionally. And then you can take that information and you can use it for all kinds of things in your record. You can use
So
that glue.
would you suggest like, I mean, like, you know, make every line have an emotion, even if they're like connecting phrases?
Well, that's what I'm saying. If it's a connecting phrase, it just has the purpose. Ambivalence kind of means it's not really high one way or on the emotion, but it is important to the storyline. So if I say, you know, if I start off saying, hey, I'm walking down the road, well, that's, I mean, I want an image there, but it's not like, oh, no, there's going to be a big change in the way I say it. But if I said, okay, I'm walking down the road and I hate what I just saw, then my voice changes, you see. And as a musician who, like like Steve said, you are a musician. As a singer, you're using music to amplify those emotions, to make them more real, I loved what an actor said in a TV show. You wouldn't think I would learn anything from that, but she said, well, the reason we sing is because saying it just doesn't cut it. This is such a powerful phrase that I have to sing it or I can't get it out. So you're going to have those moments too, but there's parts of the song that, yeah, like you're passing through that are no big deal, but it's still good to know where those are. What do they mean? You know, a lot of singers nowadays, because of what happened with Aretha Franklin and the Baptist churches and so forth, they do a lot of riffing. So they're like, oh, you know, and some of them are really sloppy and some are very accurate. But if they come to me to coach them, I will ask them, why? What's that riff mean? What's the purpose of that riff? Should it even be there? And they'll, quite often they won't know. I was talking to one girl, she says, well, I'm just nervous. That's why I did it. Okay, well, at least we know why. So do we want to always sound nervous? Do we want to leave it there? So these, by doing this under the lyrics, you'll start to ask those questions of yourself. And you'll get a chance to coach yourself through that.
So
I think
like if there's
Maya's probably got some suggestions there too.
he always has like amazing everything. But, like I'm like, wow. Yeah, so basically like if there's, you know, like oohs and ahs, make sure the oohs and ahs are there for a reason. So like
Yes.
if a song is, I'm just gonna make up like sad, have your oohs and ahs be sad. If you're gonna
Yeah.
put oohs and ahs, that is.
Yeah, the background vocals now, you know, this is an interesting thing because I know a lot in the pop music, especially, the background vocals are just a part of the rhythm section and they really don't stand out emotionally. And I saw a producer, he was trying to get a background vocal and he said, oh, I wish I had auto tune here. It would go so much faster, right? Because he could just take each track and just auto tune it and just make it sound blending. So the same thing they do to the bass and the same thing they do to the drums, the same thing they do where they quantize things and they make everything really on the beat and on the offbeat, everything is like really perfect, they can do with the background vocals. But if you don't want that, there's other producers who say, no, I don't want that. I want those background vocals to really say something. And you know, you're going to sing either on top of those background vocals or in between them. And so I think they should mean something. That's my opinion. But you know, it's you get different opinions. Go ahead, Steve.
Natasha, have you ever heard of a artist named Frank Zappa?
Oh, wow. Total rebel.
Have do you know that name? Okay, Frank Zappa. Look up some videos of Frank Zappa music and watch how the band, when they're live performances, watch how the band performs his music and see what that does for you. Because this is something that you hardly never see. I mean, I don't know. He was definitely one of a kind. I don't know if there's two or three of him now, but
He has some
he
children.
he does, and I've seen Dweezil,
Yeah.
but it's not like the early mothers of invention,
Right.
who were actually portraying or acting out the emotion of the song. You should
Yeah, an
watch.
example of how out there he was, he wrote a song called Don't Eat the Yellow Snow.
Okay.
A memorable experience.
Now, you may not like his music or may not understand it, but in terms of getting emotion across, he was a master of it. Maybe unlike anybody that's ever done it off the top of my head. So you just go experience a little bit of it. A Frank Zappa concert, like at the there's a great one of him at the not the Troubadour. What's the other one, Brad? Down on Sunset.
Whiskey, go
At the
go.
Whiskey, I think. I think it's
There's
at the
quite a
Whiskey.
few of them. It's hard to remember now. There's new ones too.
Yeah. Um, watch that and watch how the band portrays the music visually as well as sonically. They're playing in the context of the emotion of the song. So you might gain something just by watching a little bit of Zappa.
You know
Well, that's amazing.
What Corey said in the earlier podcast, I think it's number 4, that was outstanding in this area. Is he said always pay attention to the lyrics.
Yeah. And then so I have another question about like, I don't know if this is just such a basic question, but you were talking about auto tune before. And like, I mean, I've had like, I've looked at it and I just really don't like it. I just feel like maybe I don't know how to use it well, but like in my head, I'm like, well, it's just dampening all these, qualities of my voice that I like. Maybe I just like the sound of my own voice, but
Good.
but
Well,
it's
that
like, like it's, do you know what I mean? There's like this, it's not just about the pitch I'm singing. It's not just about the breath I'm taking. There's all these like nuances when I'm happy about something I've sung, right? When I'm happy, like, okay, that to me is great. I'm happy with that. There's always like these like things in it that maybe it comes from my nose or my face or something. And I just feel like when you put auto tune on something, it just completely gets rid of all of that. So in my head, I'm like, people say, oh, well, auto tune is used a lot nowadays. And I'm
there's
like,
different
sure,
levels of it.
Yeah,
There's
there's different ways it's used.
there's
it's a
different.
different level. Yeah, so you get like the basic, and then you get like the whatever. But even on the top one, it's just like you're just getting rid of a load of niceties.
Well, you can
Uh,
use it as a correction tool, or you can use it as an effect.
yeah.
And I know Matt probably would have a lot to say about it since he brought it up earlier. But there's lots of variations. When Brad talks about Melodyne, that's a pitch correction tool we can go into and correct little tiny words or vowels in words. And
And
that's just
rhythms.
to, yeah, or rhythm or anything like that. We can just correct it. Then when you're talking about auto tune, like turning it off or on, uh, uh, I don't use auto tune. I'm not that familiar with it in order to speak in detail, but it's not just an on or off type of thing. There's different levels of it. And maybe you've just experienced too much of the effect. Or
Yeah, I
maybe
just
you
use it. So, I mean, unless a producer's like, honey, you should use it on this thing. I don't really like.
as far as I'm concerned, if you don't like it, then don't use it.
Yeah,
Yeah, let me do a little pitch here. So, as a vocal coach, yes, I do teach breathing. Yes, I do teach perfect pitch. Yes, I do teach vowel shapes, range extension, how to do this, how to do that. But what you're talking about, Natasha, is that's there, but you don't pay any attention to it anymore. Okay, so whatever facial expression you want to use, just let the emotions make you use it. Don't think, well, I have to make a perfect shape. Like one of the reasons I don't particularly care for operas because I can predict what they're going to do. I know they're always going to be. I know that they do play with the timing a little bit, but generally I always know they're going to be on the beat. And if they're a good opera singer, they're going to be on the pitch, and the vibrato is going to be pretty smooth and so forth and so on. And I did a Melodyne. If you want to find my Instagram page, it's at Brad Chapman, Radical Vocal Coach. In my list of things that I've put out there, there's a before, and it was kind of an example of a classical singer singing a song called Angel by Sarah McLachlan. And you can see a part of a Melodyne screen, and you can see that her pitches and everything are perfectly on. I don't think they were created that way. She was created that way, so I don't think they melodined it. And then you get Sarah McLachlan's live version of it, and you see that, and it's totally different. Her pitches are on and off, her vibrato's erratic, there are affectations, there's rhythmic changes, all kinds of things. And most people will say, I want to hear Sarah, I don't want to hear Catherine. So you could
yeah, I
say
think
that
I saw
Catherine
that.
was auto-tuned, don't want to hear auto-tuned.
Yeah, I think I saw that on your Instagram. I was stalking you a few days ago. I was like, what's this? I saw that. And I saw that it was like, so was that like, because I saw it on the thing, was that manipulated like that, or was that her just singing it? Like,
Well, well, especially Sarah is live, but I've heard Catherine do it live as well. And Catherine, my old vocal coach, Seth Riggs, would have been just so proud of her. He said, "Now this is the way I teach voice. It's because the technique is natural. It's very comfortable. It's very floating. But you know, again, her pitch is always on. The vibrato is always perfect, like 6 times a second, the way it's taught. And her video, I don't like that either because it looks choreographed. So to me, she is the product of other people. I don't know who Catherine is. I know who her voice teacher is. This is a woman in England who teaches at a university. And probably a lot of her students, if she's proud of them, have very similar characteristics, because there's rules. You see, in classical music, there's rules. They'll put you in front of a panel of voice teachers and say, okay, we'll give her a 10 on this and give her a 9 on that. You know, she's perfectly pitched there, but that was a little flat. We didn't like the tone there. And so it creates a personality that is constantly introverting and saying, am I on? Am I doing what I was taught? And then there's the Bob Dylan. We talked about that, the epiphany of Bob Dylan. Nobody, he doesn't care what anybody thinks. He turned away his Pulitzer Prize. He turned his back on them. He says, look, I don't do this for awards. You know, thank you, but no thank you. To me, that's an artist. And so what Steve's saying, if you're the artist and you don't like the way it feels, then you change it.
great. Okay.
This is what we do all day long. We're talking to people about this all day long. Go ahead, Mayat. I think you had and then we'll get Lily in on another question. Go ahead, Mayat. I think you had something to say about it. And I respect Mayat's opinion so much. He's going to do this podcast with me at the end of September. So I'll be looking forward to that.
You guys are right on point. Like Steve said, you can use it for a specific spot. Like, well, number one, when you put auto-tune on, what I found is there's an emotion, there's this guttural emotion thing that goes away. And I hated it because I was going for feel, this emotional feel. But as a tool, and since I had that mentality, what I could go in and do, and say there was a specific word that needed a specific something and the singer had left, I could go in there and take care of that specific issue. And I would look at it like that. There's this specific thing I want to take care of, and don't touch anything else other than what I see as an issue. And I would just use it as a corrective thing. You wouldn't even know I had auto-tune on it when I would do this. Or you can use it as an effect. If that's not your thing, don't. But you're the artist. You choose on what's good to you and go for it. It's simple.
You know, Mayat's being an artist when he talks about that. You know, he's looking at it as this is an art and I'm an audience. What can I do to help the feel of this artist, not take away?
Yeah.
Well, Matt's just like this angel that's like, I don't know, like that, and I'm like, where did you come from?
I gather you're spending a lot of time with Mayat.
Well, like I mean, just had a long chat, and I can be working with him. But yeah, I just like I remember saying to him on the phone, it was really it was funny when I met him on your podcast 2 weeks ago, and I was like, it's him. I just had this like light bulb in my head. Everybody was talking. He wasn't saying anything. He was just like really quiet. And I was like, da, 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 it's him. It's him. I was like, I found the person. Like, because it's just, yeah, I don't know, maybe it's like an Aries thing, or like he's an Aries, so he gets shit done. But yeah, like I was just, yeah, so I'm really grateful. So thank you, Mark. Yeah, I'm very happy that I've met you.
He's a great, oh, sorry, go ahead, Maya.
For Steve, on the AI stuff, I just got into it, bro. And what I've been one of the main things I've been using it for is when I songwrite, I need a singer, and they're not always around, or sometimes you end up arguing with a singer if you want it sang a certain way. Like say, Steve, so say you wrote a song and you said you wanted it to be some 1920s type style, and the singer's like, no, I don't feel, man, you don't get none of that with auto tune. You just tell it what you want, you get your results and you move on. And so you can end up getting a bunch of stuff done to where you could present something to somebody and say, here's an idea of here's what I wrote, here's the type of thing, the way that I want you to sing it. They can have a vocal reference, and the person can come in and simply sing what, using the AI as a reference. Um, it ends up helping me get stuff done without any argument. Um, but the argument, when we put all of us together and we start working, though, that gumbo difference is also something that makes things awesome, as we all know.
Yeah, I could see using it as a tool like that. Yeah, many times I've got demos just sitting here that I don't have a voice on. It's like, okay, thank you. Thank you for that. I might actually embrace something new.
Bruh, you might go through and have it sing to rock, do a ballad, a 1920s ballad, and then and also do, like, you might go through 6 genres. Like, let me hear this metal, same lyric, just different genre, just to see. And you might take something that they did in metal and use it for the R&B version. Just, it gives you an idea. It might spark something.
Now,
It's
is that a specific software?
The one I'm using right now is Suno, Sunoai. You Google Suno AI, for like $10 a month. Um, you'll get a whole, like, you get a lot. Like, you can sit there and render a whole lot, and everything you do, you own.
So
Everything you do.
they owe us some money for you pitching them, by the way.
I owe them for all the stuff that I've been able to do in the 2 months that I've been using this. This is insane. Um, as a matter of fact, Brad, I'll send you. Have I sent you anything that I've done with Suno AI, Brad?
Yeah, you sent me a pop and then a country. That was very interesting. And I noticed as a vocal coach that the country guy, the way he was singing some of his high notes, retained the strain of an original artist. So they're just putting samples together, basically.
Their model, like, they're getting better and better, and I can tell a lot of stuff is AI. And we did one, and people didn't know that it was AI, and I started laughing. I was like, oh wow, I finally got it to where y'all can't tell. Because everything you do, you have to put work into.
It's amazing.
Here, I'm gonna try to put into the chat the one that I just did. If I can put it in the chat, I will. If not, would you send it to Steve so that he could see? Yeah, there it is. Okay.
You know, the other thing that I thought of when Natasha was trying to play music, you can use share screen to play.
Oh yeah, I'm not even, bro, I'm not even gonna try that at all over. I'm on the phone.
Oh, that's
I'm
right.
on my phone right now. Yeah, nah. But I just sent the link to the last one that I did. Originally, you guys, I had done it, say, R&B, pop, a bunch of stuff, and the songwriter with me said, not enough attitude, need some rock. And so we spent about 20 minutes rework, going through trying rock versions, and finally came out to that, and we loved it. Like, we did 6 or 7, 8 rock versions of it. That's what we ended up with. And like, I would actually release that as a song, and if people, like, I would come out and say, hey, here's an AI song, I dare you to not like it. I would cop that attitude with that one.
You know, Mayat is he's worked with many different producers and learned a lot of different things over the years, and I'm very proud of him for what he's learned from me. And then he's also younger than I am, so he's carrying the torch, which is going to be really great. And so there's a lot of us that believe that about my aunt. So even though he doesn't have the Grammy, maybe he doesn't have the platinum record, but he's got the knowledge and he knows how to tell you how to use it. So
Now,
One of the good things is let's say you get something worked out and you like it, you can then remove the vocal, remove the AI vocal. There's programs out there, stuff out there where you can remove vocals, some better than others. But basically, you can either um, render it somewhere on some site where you have drums, guitar, vocals, that type of stuff all separate, or simply do something where you just remove the vocals and then have a singer come in and sing it. Either way it goes, Steve, since you're in that studio working and you have songs, you can start getting songs done and press play and end up liking some of that stuff. One of my guys took one of my songs, AI, put it into his DAW, stripped everything to where it was all as separate as he could make it, moved vocals around and made the song be what he wanted it to be, and then sent it back to me. And I was like, oh, that's dope. That's what you mean. So it's a creative tool.
now, do you have to give it the melody though?
They just came out with that ability where you can give it.
thank you.
It's new, and you'll have to play with it, learn it, but that part is new.
I did it again.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to put stem splitter in there. There's a company called LALL.AI.
Because that's one of the next things where I'm going to dive in is where I tell it melody. I give it the melody that I want. That's like there's also a program where you can play a melody on your keyboard. You play the MIDI notes on your keyboard, get the melody like you want, and then on each note you put a word and it'll sing those words. It's crazy. You know?
Yeah. East West has a choir type of a vocal type of thing that does that. Are you aware of that?
No, I know that there are several people who do it. I haven't gotten into that stuff. I've just been songwriting like crazy and using this. I haven't even gotten off into that. I've just ran down this rabbit hole, just straight ahead, going hardcore. But I know about that type of stuff.
I'm going to look into that. Thank you. Yeah.
So let's let Lily, and she put her hand up a while ago. Now it's gone. So Lily, go ahead and ask your question.
Oh, no worries. I just had a question. Do you guys ever have artists who come in and learn the lyrics and learn the emotions and really just act out those emotions without really having those actual emotions, and they do it really well? Or you can usually tell that those are not really real emotions.
Well, I think that's possible. I've worked with a lot of voiceover artists.
Okay.
A voiceover artist, in fact, some of the most famous ones, like I wrote it, Russell Johnson, who was the professor in Gilligan's Island, Hal Smith, who was Otis in Andy Griffith's show. Those guys, I mean, Hal Smith was Papa Smurf, and they're character actors. They can make you believe whatever it is you want them to do. They're just good at it. I don't know, if maybe there's an issue with the sincerity of the delivery, but there could be, I suppose, but I don't know. A professional that does that a lot can fool just about everybody.
Okay.
Well, Whitney Houston was very good at it.
Oh, was she really? Yeah.
Yeah, she didn't write her songs.
Okay.
So
But
she had to make her own. And there was an interview that I liked where she was talking about where producers tried to tell her what to do, and she says, "I don't ever let them do that. So I do it my way. That's it."
Okay.
So she's
So if
making it hers.
Okay, so if I tell my daughter and I tell her to act out with emotions, think of when mommy's yelling at you and that's when you're angry. or
my
do I
aunt and
just
I
think
have
of
had
something?
some discussions about this. There's a fine line between acting and being yourself.
Correct. Okay.
And so if you truly are being someone else, then that's acting. But if you're taking the lyrics and you're saying, these are my emotions, this is what I have to say, even though it's somebody else's lyrics, then it's not acting. Then it's different.
Okay.
So yeah, sometimes you can tell when a singer is not interpreting very well. See, just
Okay.
like an actor, you can see actors who don't interpret very well. It's just,
Correct. I just wonder, like, what's the best way? Do people really just really go in all in with their emotions and think of something that's really, making them upset or sad and like just kind of, singing that, or they're just really trying to just act out those emotions? Because I see younger, I mean, now that my daughter sings, I'm around other younger kids who are singing. I see them saying those things and they're trying to act out the emotions, but they don't feel genuine either, right? But they're like my daughter, they're learning, right? Obviously. And so for
yeah,
me, I'm
but
just
from
like,
our perspective, they're probably not being coached the best way.
I see. I see. Okay. Just, yeah, just thoughts. I always just tell her when you sing something that has an angry feel or a sad feel, just think of mommy when I'm yelling at you or when I won't buy you something.
I know Brad has a whole thing. You know, Brad has a whole sing from field thing, right? Where he teaches that stuff.
Yes, he does. And my daughter is coaching with Brad. But sometimes I come in. I like again. I'm a rebel, right? So I'm gonna come in and say, no, 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 do it this way, honey.
Well, what one thing you could do is if she's supposed to be sad, right?
Mhm.
You really want her in that sad emotion. You could just start talking about sad stuff, and when you see that she's sad, have her sing.
Oh, okay, okay, good idea. Maybe I'll try that next time when she's on with Brad.
That stuff that God is teaching on Sing from Field, he
Okay.
helped me majorly. Um, because I really had an issue with the field sing thing and helping artists uh feel thing. And I'm a work, like I'm a piece of work. I was a piece of work. Um, and he helped me major. So yeah, if you guys
Yeah,
are
but
doing Brad, yeah, he's all
Mayat's come up with some things I haven't come up with. He's very good.
Okay. All right. I'll try some stuff. I'll try.
There was a story about a singer on American Idol. So going back and talking about that, I don't particularly care for putting people on those shows. But an interesting thing that what happened was, okay, he'd been on the show and he was doing well, and then he had a performance and his father died that morning, and he hadn't really told anybody about it. But after he sang, everybody was in shock, in awe of his performance.
Oh.
And it came out in this conversation that he said, well, it's because, I was in a different emotional place. My father had died and I was feeling that and it affected my performance. Now, not that we should say everybody should be having, deaths in the family to get a record out, but it goes to show that if the person's truly feeling it, then it's going to come out.
Sounds good. Thank you.
David, I know you're here for other reasons, but you're free to ask any questions. And David has a different vocal background as well.
Oh, actually, I just had a name of an application that uses AI because people were asking about that. So if you already, I think Steve had like demos, I'm guessing that just are missing a voice track or something like that. If you already have the voice part written out, like it's this note with this rhythm, the one of the applications that's like what Maya was referring to is called Dreamtonic Synthesizer 5 Pro.
Okay. Thank you.
Um,
and
yeah,
and synthesizer V.
yeah.
But Dave, you might want to, if you get offered a late night radio station job as a DJ where you're talking,
He's
take it,
good.
bro.
Yeah.
It's just
You have
there's
that
a
voice.
condenser microphone right near my mouth.
I like the way you said that. I was going to mention that too. Sometimes you really have an announcer tone. It's not always there, but sometimes like, oh, he sounds like a pro doing that.
The white zone is for loading and unloading of
Yeah,
passengers only.
you can get voiceover work, but the AI is taking that over.
Yeah. I actually did have a voice question or a music singing question. So I remember from the interview, there was something being said about sometimes you want the singer to sing a little flat on purpose. And then Brad uses like Melodyne and you can see how flat something is. Um, and then Steve somewhere in the interview said something about there's a either maybe not making things too technical, but going from the emotions. Are there things that you say to a singer, like using emotions to get them to sing a little flat on purpose somewhere? And that could
Definitely.
be for Brad or Steve.
Well, Steve's the guest speaker, so go ahead,
Yeah.
Steve.
Well, it depends on the singer. If I asked Jeanette to do that, she'd do it
Okay.
just on command, or she'd try her best to do it. Um, Unfortunately, not all singers have the capability to, first of all, you have to understand the concept of why do you want that flat, and then you have to be able to execute it, and not all singers can do that. Um, so I don't know. You can tell anybody that, but what the outcome's going to be, I'm not sure. It'll go from singer to singer.
Well, what I do, and I know Mayat does it as well now, is I'll ask them a question about what do they feel about the phrase? What's the emotional color in their mind? And of course, they'll try to tell me a story. I'll say, no, no, don't tell me the story of the line. Tell me what you feel when you say those words. So sometimes we'll break it down to just speech for a little while. Now, it isn't that they know they're singing flat. That's not the way we think about it. It's the emotion drives the note flat. It's many years ago I did an evaluation of Bette Midler just singing the Rose, and it was an epiphany for me because I didn't really understand why she was so unique until I took it. I learned every lick in unison. I perfected my voice with her voice in unison. Well, it was very interesting because, again, looking back from some music theory, I was trying to evaluate, okay, where is she coming in on the beat? Where is she on pitch? It was impossible. I could not think it through. The only way I could learn it was pure imitation. And when I matched her, I said to myself, okay, why? Why is she flat? Why did she come in the rhythm this way? And this is my opinion, emotions were driving everything she did. She probably couldn't tell you how she did it. When she was on pitch, when she was flat, when she was early on the beat, when she was late. I mean, you know, it was a ballad, right? So the tempo was going by like this. But in between that, you could say there's 124th notes, right? If you want to get into music theory. So did she come in on 123 or did she come in on 64? You can't, I couldn't quantify it that way. I had to just listen to it so many times. I would take a phrase and listen 20, 30 times before I even tried to sing it. And I teach this as well now, because you have to get your head full of stuff that the emotions can drive. And that's the interesting thing about being a musician or a singer is if you don't have that in your subconscious, then you can't create it emotionally. You don't have the tools. Does that
Thank you.
answer?
Yes. Yes.
Any other questions you have? I loved your perspective when we actually had a chance to talk for a few minutes. Because he was telling me how he was using, was it Melodyne you used to help that singer
Oh, and no,
actually get in pitch with you?
it was just Audacity. I was trying to get the timing,
Audacity, yeah.
so because I do community chorus stuff, and so I do stuff that like we are told in this podcast not always to do. I try to teach someone how to line up the timing of an eighth note just right. So I just have them sing on FarPlay with me, and then we see the two waveforms afterwards on the screen sharing, and you can see when his blob is aligned or not. And I promise that if there's an emotional piece that we have to do and he's doing a solo, I will teach him to like let it be free. I
No.
promise to do.
Wait a minute, David. See, we want to keep this in perspective, and Steve said it. It's apples and oranges.
Yes.
Okay, so you're telling me the environment that you're using right now is
Yeah.
apples. That's great. Be an apple.
Okay.
But I want to be an orange when I do my thing, right? So I'm an orange, you're an apple. Is that right or wrong? No, it's just different. We're both fruit because, we both use the same instrument, right? But how we use it, it depends on the genre. And I've broken it down. When I listen to my students, I take into consideration the genre they're in before I decide what pitches I'm going to fix or talk about. Because some genres, like I told you about when I was vocal producing, some genres, there's more flat notes than others. And some genres, there's more on pitch than others. And I think one should respect that. But on Natasha's question, but at the same time, it's okay if you want to add a little flair to classical by maybe throwing in a blues note, which is like a flat minor third. Difference between art and doing what you're told, I guess, or acting. And opera was acting. And we listen to a lot of classical music when we watch TV shows. It's in the background. And they have very specific rules about the way they do things, and it works very well. What do you think of that, Steve?
I agree.
Well,
You got to love it all. That's the thing. There's something to be said for every genre of music, and whether or not it's our favorite, it doesn't really matter. It's like all artists, if they really have something to say and they're saying it sincerely, I'm gonna dig it. It just doesn't matter. Give me a Willie Nelson, give me a Blind Boy Willie, I don't care. As long as it's real.
Willie Nelson is another good example of the Bob Dylan epiphany.
Do you remember, Brad, when his hit Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain came out?
Nope.
It must have been 75,
I had
76.
never heard of Willie at that point because I was
Well,
not in the country area.
nobody had.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Really. But the interesting thing was, I remember listening to Casey Kasem's Top 40, and you hear all these pop songs and of course disco songs in that era and all this kind of stuff. And then on comes Willie Nelson singing with a classical guitar in his nasally voice, and it's like he just jumped out of the radio because first of all, it was just a couple instruments, so there was a lot more sonic space for them to be heard, but he had such a unique sound. You couldn't, whether you hated it or loved it, you're going to notice it. And that's him being him. And if you know, for anybody striving to do this for a living, if you know the story of his life, it's a good example of a rebel. It's a good example of somebody uh, not not giving up, not quitting. I mean, do you know? He wrote so many hit songs. Like he wrote "Crazy," the Patsy Cline tune. He wrote that. He wrote so many huge, huge hits, but they weren't going to let him sing it. They were going to give somebody who was more of a commercial singer at the time. They're going to give it to them, and he made money on it, but he always
More than
wanted
the
to be an
singer, that's
artist.
for sure.
Yeah, right.
That was an interesting time, though. You mentioned 70s. Carole King kind of did a similar thing. She had a whole bunch of hits, and Aretha Franklin had sang them, and James Taylor and so forth. Better singers than Carole. Then she did her own album in the 70s called Tapestry.
Hmm.
That thing sold like hotcakes, and it was stayed on the top 100 for years. And it was because at that period of time, and I think there's still some layover from it, people were more interested in hearing it from the original artist than they were from somebody covering it, even though the person covering it was a better vocalist, so to speak. And Mayat just discovered Willie Nelson, and he thinks he's the dope. Did you hear me, Mayat? Oh, I said that you discovered Willie Nelson just recently. Yeah. You have to,
Yeah, I've been on a Willie Nelson binge.
yeah.
um, I, I I knew of Willie Nelson. There were certain songs I liked. I had no idea he was a prolific songwriter and just that he was that good. Like he wrote, there were certain songs he wrote. Like I had no idea that he had written something that was something one of my favorite songs. And there's even one song, something like These Walls or something like that.
Four walls.
Blank blew my mind. You know, the concept of the song and how good he was. I went and bought books, his lyrics and all kinds of stuff, and just went down the rabbit hole, and it taught me a lot. You know,
Yeah.
as all this technology, he's sitting there putting in the work. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Natasha, I'm going to ask you a question. So based on everything that you've been hearing since you were asked questions, what are you getting out of all this?
Like everything. I mean,
Okay, be a little more
okay,
specific.
okay, so all right. So as an academic person, right, you go and you learn, like you get to like 20 books, like all the ones that everybody recommends, you know, you go to all these workshops in LA for like songwriting and everything. But and I did all that, okay? And like when I geek out, it's like I'm in a work coma, no one sees me for days, right? Everyone's like, did she die?
Oh no.
But I think I like seriously, like my family get like worried. They're like, oh my God, like she hasn't eaten or slept. Like, wow, this is interesting. Like, call it what you will. But I think you you know when you're getting advice that is like better. And I think like coming from I had the luxury and the opportunity like when I was a kid to literally learn every subject from like the best, so the best at maths, the best at English, the best at everything. So like of course I was going to be good at like, you know, like it's not me, I just had amazing teachers. But I think like when it comes to anything, when you know you kind of have this like sense of like, no, this is really good advice, even if you're like a novice and you don't know anything about the thing, just by the fact that like somebody is explaining something, it's like there's like a certain way of explaining, or I don't know if it's a certain way of explaining, it's just like I feel that everything that I'm listening to is like so useful, but I don't know why I think it's useful, right? Because I'm still learning, but I think it's just really helpful to get a certain level of help, because there's loads of people that like give advice, right? And I've been to lots of things, and you know, you sit there and you do the hours and you put the man hours in and you do it and you're like, oh, is this really okay? Like, let me take out of it what I want to take out of it. And like, and you know, there's always this thing of like we have a family motto, like just like Nike tick, just do it. So like don't talk about doing it, just do it. So like if you want to go learn songwriting, just get on a plane, go to LA, do it, right? Or whatever. So that's has always been my way of learning anything. So you do that and then you keep doing it and you keep going to things and then hope, and then at some point you're like, okay, you know what, like I have amassed a certain amount of knowledge. But then it's when you get like, I'm so glad that I perchance, you know, came on the podcast, because this is like amazing. Like, you know, I think anyone who like listens to the podcast back and they're, you know, an aspiring artist or whatever, you know, I think literally it's really, you know, it's really, really useful to get advice from people who know.
People who've been there. Yeah.
Because you can do everything in your power to like be an A student, like be on your A game, like all of this, right? But at the end of the day, you know, you've got to get advice from people who know. So and then, okay, we're talking about art, which is, you might call it subjective.
Yes.
Oh, but I like this, like that. But there's still a level that you like. I think if you're going to bother, so my dad always gave me advice, like if you're going to bother doing something, be really good at it. Like if you're going to bother, whatever it is you decide you do. So I just think like, if you're that type of person that just, you know, like, I think anyone who's seeking out to do anything, like, I mean, even your guess, sorry, I forgot your name, who's, you know, daughter you're teaching, she's like, what, 8 years old? Like, I think, like, you know, it's invaluable to be getting singing lessons at that age from somebody who knows, right? So I think, like, but unfortunately, people don't necessarily, you know, find good people to, and I think so. In answer to your question, I think there's just a level on this podcast that I haven't like seen before, which I'm really grateful for, because you know, like, you have, these are not straightforward questions. Like, these are things that are like, you know, you think about, and then if you ask a question like this to somebody who's, I don't know, maybe, I'm not going to name, you know, mention any music schools, but I, you know, like, found the professor at that music school, gone, hello, can you give me lessons, right? It's like, this is way more just, it's just what you, it's just better. It's just better. I'm sorry. Like, I don't know how to say it in a PC way. It's just better. And yeah, like, I think if you're someone who just is used to learning from ace people, like, you know, I think this is just amazing. So, like, I'm like, wow, I can't believe I came across it. Can't believe I met Brad and Martin. Like, I'm like, wow, this is incredible. And you know it's good, because when you compare it to the other stuff that you've done, not saying that that stuff isn't good, I'm not saying that it's not correct, you know, it's just, when you do have hard questions sometimes, like when you study something like that, you know, you have these questions that are like tricky, and you just want to know the answer. And I think, like, it's really helpful. So I'm really, really grateful to everyone. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And I'd like to summarize that in that you're asking yourself a lot of questions now. I think that's terrific. And my aunt and I are working with a woman who's her name is Olga. She's been on these before, and she asks a lot of questions. But what I notice about how I handle her questions and how your questions have been handled by everybody is that we turn around and ask you a question. Well, what do you think? What do you feel? What do you want to do? And I think that's where it's tough in seminars and things like that to get that across. I really don't do seminars. I don't go after them. I've done some, but it's not something I really like doing. I really love one-on-one. There's just so many things that get misconstrued in a seminar type of situation. And you know, speaking of art, Steve, I hope some people hate this podcast because that means we really did a great job.
Yeah.
We really put out some emotions there to be judged.
Even though it's not a competition.
I just been singed.
Speaking of no competition, Steve, if like, you can contact me anytime if you know, that initial getting things started, getting over that learning hump. If you want, we can end up on Zoom where we do the Suno AI stuff even before you sign up, so that you know how to use it and you see what's actually going on. I'll help you get over that initial hump. But now on that learning stuff, and us, we're not actually, like, when we're talking to you right now, we're not, like, I'm not trying to sell you anything when I try to explain stuff. And Brad, Steve, we're not sitting there trying to sell you. We're really just, you know, getting the information across. And like when I talk, I'm just coming from the heart, giving the real deal. And but even with that, uh, the way a person explains and the way we receive, we just won't receive certain things from everybody. Like, I've sat there and I'll say something plainly to somebody I love, and they're sitting there and they're like, I don't get it. And somebody who has no clue will come and say it, and that loved one will understand it plain as day. And I'm sitting there, hitting my head against the wall, like, what is this? I plainly said it. Um, so you just have to want it like you're wanting it, and then just go until you find wherever you can actually receive it from. Um, that's the best way I can explain it. You know.
That's great, Maya. There's a psychologist who talked about relationships, like you were talking about, and how one person in the relationship will make a comment, and the other person's upbringing is so different that they might take that comment entirely differently than what you said.
Yes.
And as artists, especially if we put a recording out there, we're stuck with that. I mean, you will not find that everyone on the planet loves the Rolling Stones, and you will not find that everyone on the planet loves Barbara Streisand, or you will
Right.
not find that everybody on the planet loves not one of the greatest opera singers of the last century.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's the way it should be. You know, if you're having an effect on somebody, they're going to make a value judgment, and that value judgment is going to be from their perspective, like you said, subjective. And if they don't like the way it feels, that's okay. You did a great job. You just have to hope that it's only 5% of your audience and not 100%, right? 100% don't like what you do. Well, okay, then that's going to be tough to make a living at that. But if you can get 60% or 80%, then you can make a decent living at it.
Now, mind you, any of us, when we say this stuff in here, somebody will say the exact opposite and have a reason for it, and it might work. Like, they might do it at an elite status, and it absolutely worked. You'll have people coming in saying the exact opposite things, and both of those people are kicking butt at doing that, and neither one are being nefarious when they're explaining it to you. But so with me, I've gotten to where I actually had gotten tired of explaining stuff, and I'm like, let's meet up. I'll do it. I'll prove it. I'll just demonstrate. It's time to let's just do it. I'm from the hip hop culture, so if I say whatever I say, whether it's mixing loud and having it not hurt your ears and actually still having dynamics, if I say I can do that, well, let's meet up, and I'm gonna do it with your material. I'm forget all this talking. I've gotten to that stage where I'm ready to. I'll just do it. You know.
Yeah, in our world, it doesn't matter whether you get an A plus or not. You can either do it or you can't.
Yeah. And
And all,
what it
and all the schools in the world telling you that you're perfect is not going to change that.
yeah, there's one thing. When you press play, how do people experience it? And it might even be something that you hate, but millions of people love it, and it makes them feel something. So you weren't connected with them. They got something out of it that you might not have expected, whatever. When you like that's what when we say it's art, you just gotta you do it, you put it out there, and whoever is supposed to be the authority, people might not feel that. They might feel something from somebody who's not the authority, who has no clue.
There might be somebody who reacted to Steve bringing a guitar into the church.
There you go. There you go.
Okay, guys. Well, we've done our 3 hours. I posted these are 2 hours long, but they just always seem to keep going. But
You and Steve had a good conversation, bro. That was good stuff. I'm telling you. I was, yeah.
Yeah,
well, thank
3 hours
you.
flew by. Let me tell you, it's great having a conversation like this. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Guys.
we've actually all learned from each other. Even I've learned something from Natasha.
Yep.
I would love to get Steve details, just like if you don't mind, like, you know, like being asked 10,000 questions and being like, oh my God, this chick.
No, that's how I make a living. I mean, I'm not charging you for this, but and like I say, I don't necessarily want to charge you for this because it's not one-on-one coaching, and I want to see if I'm getting paid, I want to see an immediate reaction to my suggestion, so that I can guide that person from that point. It's a little bit like a tennis match, you know, like okay, I say okay, you know, hit the ball to me, right? So that's going to tell me how I'm going to hit the ball back. And I hit the ball back, and then that tells them, if they're learning something, how to hit the ball back to me. And so if there isn't this going on, I don't feel like I'm doing a very good job. So that's why I don't generally do seminars or I would never teach in a school. I don't think you can teach art in a school. You can teach principles of it, but to actually get the student to feel the art, to create the art, I think would be very difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it's not my way of doing things. That's all. And my art is saying, hey, put the what does it say? Put the rubber to the ground and see if it's if it gets any traction, right? And then the other popular saying is throw it on the wall and see if it sticks. It doesn't stick. I don't care what you think. Didn't stick. Any closing sayings, Stephen?
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
It's been wonderful being a part of this.
Thank you, and we really appreciate you being here. And I just a comment about Natasha. It's about 6 in the morning where she is. She's a real trooper, staying up this late to be with us.
But it's amazing. So like, it's like sleep can wait. Like if it wasn't this amazing, I'd be in bed getting beauty sleep. Trust me, I've got a toothache too. But like I've got to go to A&E in the morning.
Oh my.
I was going like this. I've got to go to A&E. But like I was like, I'm not missing this. This is awesome. So I'm really grateful to everybody.
Well, remember to use the pain. Use the pain to sing to get your idea.
Well, I was sitting like this, so like, and I had to buy the cane, so it's fine. But yeah, A&E it is tomorrow.
Okay, y'all. Well, we're gonna move on from here, and there'll be another one in 2 weeks. I'm trying to think. I think I've got the one fellow canceled till September, so I think Dre DeMost is the next one, who's a associate of my aunt, and he's a real character, he says, so that's going to be fun. But we're going to he's going to be more of an engineer, coming from an engineer. So now, as far as contacting people, let's all go on chat and put anything that we feel is okay to be on chat as far as reaching us. And I have a podcast page now, so I'll put that in, and you can go back and see some of the ones that you didn't get a chance to ask questions in. So everybody go ahead. I'll try to not type the wrong thing here. Not very good at typing. Oops. Oh, missed that.
Sorry about that. Keep using the enter key, and I don't know, whatever.
That's what I
You get
did.
the idea. Thanks for all the information. Appreciate it. I'm going to go now, guys.
All right, thanks, Steve. We'll see you
All right.
later. And so what I put up there, you can see the podcast and, of course, everything else about me, because it's my webpage with the podcast on there. So
Okay.
enjoy, everyone, and see you next time.
All right now.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.